Chapter 156. From the moment Li Tianqing made his move, he could feel that Li Tianqing's strength wasn't simple. After all, the elemental formula he cultivated was a grade 6 one. The gap between the two realms wasn't something an ordinary person could understand. Therefore, when Li Tianqing made his move, Lu Tingfei also felt a trace of threat. However, in Lu Tingfei's opinion, this little bit of strength was not enough to threaten him. The Lu family had fought their way out of North Pu City for many years. Lu Tingfei had seen all kinds of situations to be able to achieve his current status. How could a mere few hundred people be enough to frighten him? Very good. I don't know where these cats and dogs came from, but you dare to clamor with your grandfather. See if I don't cripple you today. Lu Tingfei suddenly growled. However, with Li Tianqing in front of him, the aura released from Lu Tingfei's body didn't affect these people at all. Li Zongjiu's gaze suddenly locked onto a person behind Lu Tingfei. This person was dressed simply and looked like an ordinary guard. However, there was something wrong with his eyes. There was only an empty killing intent in his eyes. Once this person was awakened, it would be like awakening a giant killing beast. Roar! The guard suddenly let out a low roar and opened his eyes. He pulled out the steel blade in his hand, and a violent wave of air blasted towards Li Tianqing. In the face of this move, there was no need for Li Tianqing to make a move personally. As a guard of the Li family, Li Gui had already raised his blade and attacked. However, in the face of this blade's wave of air, Li Gui also slashed out with his saber, but he heard a loud bang. Li Gui's figure flew out, and the long saber in his hand was broken into two. Bang! Li Gui's body landed on the ground with a bloody wound on his chest. Quick! Stop his bleeding! Shen Nanxiao saw this and quickly shouted. Immediately, a professional doctor from the Shen family came out and sprinkled medicinal powder on Li Gui's body. A cold light flashed in Li Tianqing's eyes. This person's blade technique was so sharp. If it was a little more powerful, he might have directly killed this person. Fortunately, Li Gui was wearing a decent inner armor. This was also what Li Gui had saved from his frugality. It directly helped Li Gui to save his life. You're courting death! Li Tianqing shouted angrily. The heavenly blaze Lion King art in his body had been activated to the extreme. Boom! A violent roar erupted from Li Tianqing's body. However, just as Li Tianqing was about to make a move, he saw Lu Tingfei slamming his palm towards Li Tianqing. Go, capture that Shen Nanxiao. This time, Lu Tingfei came to settle accounts with someone. Since he was here to settle accounts, he naturally had to find the culprit, which was Shen Nanxiao. As for other matters, he would talk about it later. Immediately, Lu Tingfei charged towards Li Tianqing with the strength of a 9th grade Yuan master. Li Tianqing was naturally fearless. Boom! The two of them suddenly exchanged a palm strike. In the blink of an eye, waves of air surged. Li Tianqing took 3 steps back before he managed to neutralize his opponent's force. However, Li Tianqing did not fall into a disadvantageous position. What? Lu Tingfei originally thought that his palm strike would be enough to send Li Tianqing flying. However, it seemed that it was still not enough. Li Tianqing's internal force was like a solid wall that was simply impossible to move. This was the cultivation of an ordinary person, and the energy in their body would not be so condensed. Therefore, Lu Tingfei instantly realized that the level of the Yuan technique that Li Tianqing cultivated was not low. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to fight so tenaciously against someone who was 2 grades lower than him. Kill! The beast-like guard at the beginning also shouted loudly. The guards behind him drew their swords one after another and formed a sharp stream of swords that charged towards Shen Nanxiao. Form the formation. Take them down. Gu Man roared and then took the lead to rush out, wanting to stop the ferocious guard. However, the ferocious guard once again slashed out with his long saber. The sharp saber chi swept towards Gu Man's head as fast as lightning. Although Gu Man was brave and ferocious, he knew that if he rushed up now, this saber would be enough to chop off his head. Gu Man tilted his body and the saber chi swept past his ear, causing his ears to ring. However, the Li family's guards were also entangled with the Lu family's guards. It was basically 5 against 1. The Liu family's guards were basically only able to withstand 1 or 2 attacks. If there were more, they would not be able to hold on. It was only a matter of time before they were defeated. Moreover, the Li family's guards did not rush forward recklessly. It was as if they had already rehearsed this. They formed groups of a few people and moved in an orderly manner. If they encountered a strong opponent, then 3 people would defend and 2 people would attack. If they encountered an easy opponent, then 2 people would defend and 3 people would attack. Fortunately, the courtyard was big enough. Close to 100 people were not able to fight in front of the banquet table. Instead, they were all in front of the forest. Many flower beds and trees were cut down by the chaotic saber chi. The most ferocious guard suddenly broke out of the encirclement. He consecutively knocked down 3 Li family's guards and dodged the bows and arrows of the Shun family's hunters. He suddenly leaped toward Shen Nanxiao and raised the saber in his hand above his head. At this moment, even if Shen Nanxiao were to raise a Vajra shield, it would probably be chopped into pieces. Damn it! Shen Nanxiao faced the saber. He was almost unable to move because of the opponent's aura. He could not move at all. After all, Shen Nanxiao was only an 8th grade Yuan realm expert. He had not even reached the realm of Yuan master. Facing the killing intent of this guard that was comparable to a 6th grade Yuan master. How could he dodge it? However, Shen Nanxiao was unable to move at all. In the eyes of others, Shen Nanxiao was already calm and composed. He was not afraid in the face of danger. In terms of aura, he did not lose to the opponent at all. The Liu family's guard descended from the sky and the saber in his hands suddenly fell. There was a loud boom. The saber chi swept across. The saber chi, which was hundreds of feet wide, directly slashed into the ground with a loud bang. The ground immediately exploded into countless fragments. Large beads of sweat dripped down Shen Nanxiao's forehead. Above his head, his forehead was facing the tip of the saber. If it fell a little bit more, it would be enough to cut open his scalp. However, even so, the aura in front of him made Shen Nanxiao's scalp go numb. "You brat, why didn't you make a move earlier?" Shen Nanxiao wanted to curse out loud. This nephew of his, why did he have to wait until now to act? Was he trying to act cool? Why didn't he change the time and place to act cool? Why did he have to make a move at this time? The Liu family's guard also looked at the person in front of him. He muttered to himself, as if he was extremely shocked. Li Zongjiu's 2 fingers easily caught the opponent's saber that was chopping down. The saber was sharp, but in Li Zongjiu's hands, it was like a piece of paper. He did not even put it in his eyes. Mad blood goo. After observing at such a close distance, Li Zongjiu discovered the uniqueness of this person's body. He was actually implanted with the mad blood goo. The effect of the mad blood goo was similar to the effect of Li Zongjiu's mad blood guide. However, the mad blood goo was a kind of insect refined from blood. Once it was implanted into the body, the blood essence in the body would be stimulated. This would achieve the effect of overdrawing the body's potential. This was an extremely stupid act of exhaustion. However, for these ordinary guards, it could provide them with powerful strength. When used at a critical moment, it could have the effect of turning the situation around. Roar! The guard, who was poisoned by the mad blood goo, roared at Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu frowned. Scram! The moment he released his hand, he punched the guard's face. Bang! The guard was directly sent flying. Although he did not explode, the front half of his skull was directly shattered. It was twisted into a lump of flesh and blood. From the flesh and blood, a red insect that looked like a cockroach crawled out. It was at least half the size of a palm. When the surrounding people saw this, they were all shocked. They felt extremely disgusted and scared. They did not expect the Liu family to have such evil means. The means of the poison sect of the southern border? When Li Zongjiu saw this scene, he suddenly muttered in his heart. A memory also surged into his mind. The poison sect of the southern border was a disaster in the Jianghu. In his previous life, Li Zongjiu could be said to be a bystander. The poison sect of the southern border used goo poison everywhere and controlled many families and forces in the southern border. It once caused the southern border of the dynasty to fall into a period of darkness. In his previous life, Li Zongjio was indifferent. Although there was a lot of friction with the poison sect of the southern border, he did not become enemies with them. Now, when he thought of the poison sect of the southern border's conquest, the Luoxia city in the southern border and the snow elixir sect in the southern border would be invaded and devoured. The Lu family was an example. Chapter 157. Li Zongjio did not hold back since it was a trick of the poison sect of the southern region. He stomped the bug to death with his foot. Although there was no conflict with the poison sect of the southern region now, the poison sect of the southern region would definitely take over the entire southern region in the future. Anyone who stood in their way would have to be eradicated. Hence, they would have to face each other sooner or later. Even if you did not provoke others, it did not mean that others would not provoke you. This was the embodiment of reality and reality. Damn it. Lu Tingfei saw that the ferocious guard had his head blown off by Li Zongjio. Obviously, Li Zongjio's strength was even more terrifying. There were so many experts hidden in this small Guanxi town. It was not easy to provoke them. They came in a hurry this time. Obviously, they were not well prepared and did not have many experts with them. Lu Tingfei was ready to run when he saw the situation. Since he was no match for the other party, it was better to retreat quickly. Otherwise, he would not be able to leave later on. Lu Tingfei immediately threw out a palm. Yuan energy surged, but Lin Fan still held back and did not use his full strength in this palm strike. Li Tianqing did not dare to be careless. He went all out and threw out a fire lion palm. The Yuan energy around him formed a terrifying aura and blasted towards Lu Tingfei. Bang! The two people's auras collided, instantly forming a terrifying force. Li Tianqing immediately realized that Lu Tingfei's force was not enough to hurt him. After throwing out this move, Lu Tingfei quickly retreated to the back and borrowed the force to escape. Go to hell! Lu Tingfei's figure rose into the air. At the same time, he took out a bamboo tube and threw it down. Poisonous bugs. Countless poisonous bugs rushed out of the bamboo tube and swooped down towards the people below. The toxicity of these poisonous bugs was unknown, but the people below were all guests. If anything happened to them, it would be a bad omen. The Shen family would be humiliated. Hence, Li Tianqing and Li Zongjio who wanted to chase after the bugs. The two of them also directly attacked these poisonous bugs. Fire elemental energy swept out like a huge net. These poisonous insects were instantly burned to ashes by the fire elemental energy. Li Zongjio also released the elemental energy in his body. After the Yuan power left his body, it actually transformed into numerous glowing spots and accurately killed these poisonous insects. This release was much more economical and efficient than Li Tianqing's fire net. From this, it could be seen that Li Zongjio's control of Yuan power was far superior to Li Tianqing's. Li Zongjio was so young, but his strength was no less than Li Tianqing's. The aura he exuded was just as powerful. In some aspects, he was even more experienced than Li Tianqing. Some people couldn't help but feel envious. A tiger father would not beget a dog son. Just wait for your Shen family to be annihilated. And the people of Guanxi town, I want your Guanxi town to be in chaos. Lu Tingfei's voice, which was already flying in the sky, came from afar. This warning made everyone present feel uneasy. The Lu family was obviously going to vent their anger on them because of the Shen family. Perhaps they would also be implicated. Li Zongjio was about to give chase, but he stopped when he was about to move. Above the sky, a powerful aura suddenly swept out. A huge golden palm print fell from the sky. Bang! A sky shaker ship slowly emerged from the clouds. Lu Tingfei's defense was first destroyed by the palm, then he was directly hit by the sky shaker ship. From the sky, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell from the sky. However, the sky shaker ship shot out a few more flying ropes. Bang! The steel fork that flew out directly penetrated Lu Tingfei's shoulder and thigh, hanging him up. What is that? The family head seems to have been stabbed to death. This ship can actually fly in the sky. Look, that's the flag of the Zheng family. The Zheng family. In the entire Dinghuan province, there were many members of the Zheng family. However, There was only one family in Dingquan province that could have such a big lineup. The Zheng family of Cerulean Wave Giant City. The wealth and power of the Zheng family occupied half of Cerulean Wave Giant City. It could be said that they shared the world with the dynasty. To be able to have such power, they were almost like emperors in these ordinary towns. The Sky Shaker ship had the symbol of the Zheng family. Lu Tingfei, who was hanging in the sky, also saw the symbol. When he saw the symbol, his mind combined it with the words of the messenger from Qingzhou City. He gradually understood that he should not have done this. Who would have thought that he would be able to find someone related to the Zheng family in this rural corner? He should not have come to Guanxi town. Now, it seemed that his son should be dead. Otherwise, such a situation would not have happened. This was the Zheng family's plan. They just did not expect it. This was indeed an extremely painful thing. It was absolutely unbelievable that such a thing would happen to him. Boom, boom. 3 figures fell from the Sky Shaker ship. The guards of the Lu family also stopped resisting. They originally wanted to escape. However, when they found that the door was closed and they were in a state of death, they knew that they would not be able to pass today. Therefore, one by one, they raised their hands and surrendered. Even if they did not surrender, they would have been killed by the Li family guards. Zheng Haoren and his maid. Beside them was an old man who looked to be in his prime. At the same time, he reached out his hand and caught Lu Tingfei. With a loud bang, Lu Tingfei fell to the ground. In addition to these 3 people, there was also the 5-colored elk that fell from the sky. Flowery. When Shen Yi saw her Flowery, she rushed out without caring about the danger. Shen Yi's mother wanted to pull her back, but it was too late. She saw Shen Yi rush out. Boom. The 5-colored elk landed on the ground and pounced into Shen Yi's arms. They had been separated for almost 2 days. For both of them, it was extremely long. When the old man who came with Zheng Haoren saw the 5-colored elk being so intimate with Shen Yi, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. The 5-colored elk's intelligence was the highest among all the spirit beasts. It was also because of this that the Zheng family's patriarch succeeded in breaking through. However, this was a secret that was not announced to the outside world. As a trump card, whether or not he succeeded in breaking through was not something that outsiders would know. These things were all left to the Zheng family for outsiders to guess. Zheng family's Zheng Haoren has come to congratulate old Master Xin on his 70th birthday. Zheng Haoren cleared his throat and ignored the extremely focused gazes around him. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. This time, I brought a congratulatory gift. An 8-directional suppressing origin stone, a 7-star flame room, a 6-revolution steel blade, 500 purple origin stones, several carriages of 3rd-grade spirit herbs. The maid beside him presented a storage ring in her hand. When they heard the first few items, the rich and powerful of Guanxi town were already stunned. 8-directional suppressing origin stone. 1 stone suppressing 8 directions. It was the masterpiece of an origin inscription master. An origin inscription was carved on a spirit stone that contains spirit energy. It was then displayed in the family to ensure that the family's luck would last forever. As for the 7-star flame room, it was the top weapon pavilion in Dingquan province. A 6-revolution steel blade worth no less than $1 million. It was comparable to an Earth-grade divine weapon. Chapter 158. Apart from that, there were also a lot of valuable items. In Guanxi town, one would never be able to spend all that money in a lifetime. However, that was not the most important thing. Money was not something that could last for long. Although he suddenly had a large fortune, it could be squandered in a short period of time. The most important thing was that even the Zheng family had come to congratulate him. What kind of ability did a landlord who lived in such a remote village have to have the Zheng family come all the way here to congratulate him? It was simply unimaginable. In the future, within 1,000 miles of Guanxi town, no one would dare to provoke the Shen family in Guanxi town. I'm the city lord of Qingzhou City. I'm here to congratulate the Shen family on your birthday. At this moment, the old man at the side finally stood up and stated his identity and purpose. When they heard the old man's identity, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the city lord of Qingzhou City was here. the nature of the situation was even more different. However, after thinking about it, since the Zheng family of Cerulean Wave Giant City was here, the city lord of Qingzhou City was nothing. The city lord of Qingzhou City was also here to congratulate Shen Nanxiao on his birthday. At the same time, he also officially announced that Shen Nanxiao had become the garrison guard of Guanxi town. The people of the Lu family trespassed on private property and deserve to die. We'll leave them to garrison guard Shen to deal with. However, you have to see if there's anything missing in the house. The city lord of Qingzhou City said. Lu Tingfei was seriously injured. At this moment, he looked at the city lord of Qingzhou City in shock and disbelief. Firstly, he did not expect the Shen family to be related to the Zheng family of Cerulean Wave Giant City. Secondly, the person who killed him was actually the city lord of Qingzhou City. During this process, the city lord of Qingzhou City did not even look at Lu Tingfei. It was as if Lu Tingfei was just a person who was about to die. The city lord of Qingzhou City did not care about the insignificant Lu family. He had already warned Lu Tingfei, but Lu Tingfei refused to listen. This made the city lord of Qingzhou City feel guilty. Lu Tingfei was stupid, so he could not blame anyone else. Take him away, Shen Nanxiao said. He did not kill Lu Tingfei right away. He had just taken office. However, today was a joyous occasion for the Shen family. If he killed too many people, it would spoil the mood. Not only were the heavily injured Lu Tingfei taken away, but the Lu family guards were also tied up one by one and taken away. This must be Mr. Li Zongjiu. I've heard a lot about you. The city lord of Qingzhou City came before Li Zongjiu and cupped his hands as he spoke. You're exaggerating. Li Zongjiu clasped his hands together. Qingzhou City frowned. This Li Zongjiu didn't seem to know how to be polite. However, he didn't say anything for Zheng Haoren's sake. However, he couldn't help but have some opinions in his heart. This Li Zongjiu looked ordinary, but his temper was quite bad. It was unknown what kind of method she had used to confuse Zheng Haoren. Li Zongjiu had Zheng Haoren behind him. In that case, Li Zongjiu would be able to do whatever he wanted within the jurisdiction of Qingzhou City. This poisonous bug was brought in by the poison sect of southern Xinjiang. You'd better be careful. Li Zongjiu pointed at the poisonous bug that he had trampled to death. At this moment, Zheng Haoren and the city lord of Qingzhou City couldn't help but go forward to take a look. That guard's death was rather tragic. Coupled with the fact that there was a venomous bug in front of them, they couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over their bodies. It was indeed rather disgusting. What exactly were these people trying to do? How could they be so cruel to themselves? Poison sect of southern Xinjiang? What's that? The city lord of Qingzhou City couldn't help but be puzzled. Even with his identity and status, he didn't know about the existence of the poison sect of southern Xinjiang. After pondering for a while, Zheng Haoren suddenly widened his eyes in shock. Poison sect of southern Xinjiang? Could it be that there's a tribe in the extinct mountain range? Zheng Haoren couldn't help but be surprised. The extinct mountain range was an extremely dangerous place. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to set foot in such a place. However, in such a mountain range, there was a unique paradise. There were mysterious tribes and clans in it. After so many years, the outside world only knew about the tribes in the extinct mountain range. They only knew about them. They called themselves the Southern Xinjiang tribe. Since it was the poison sect of southern Xinjiang, it must be related to the Southern Xinjiang tribe. However, this matter needed to be properly investigated. However, to be able to invade the land of the Lu family, the poison sect of southern Xinjiang must have targeted other places. Obviously, it would not be easy to find out who they were. That's right. It's the Southern Xinjiang tribe. In the future, they will definitely become a big problem. We must take precautions in Kuan province. Li Zongjiu said. He had already revealed so much. If these people didn't listen, Li Zongjiu couldn't do anything. It was up to them whether they listened or not. Anyway, he had already told them. My Zheng family will definitely investigate this matter with all our might. Zheng Haoren said with a solemn face. However, the city governor of Qingzhou City didn't care at all. How many people were there in the southern Xinjiang tribe? They were hiding in the extinct mountain range. Whether they could survive was already a problem. Now, they even wanted to invade Kuan province. What a joke. Zheng Haoran didn't know what was wrong with him. He usually looked very smart. Why did he seem like a fool in front of Li Zongjio? Of course, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He just kept it in his heart. The Shin family also tidied up the garden. The only one who was seriously injured in this battle was Li Gui. Li Gui was unlucky. Who knew that the other party would explode with such a terrifying power that Li Gui couldn't defend himself in time. That was why he was hit. The Zheng family didn't stay for long. After congratulating them, they left directly. It didn't matter whether the person was there or not. As long as the gift was there, it proved their intention. Although it was a pity, if the Zheng family was there, it would definitely make the Shen family uncomfortable. Shen Chuanqiu looked at the lively scene in front of him. It seemed that the fierce battle just now didn't affect the mood of these people. On the contrary, they all saw clearly and thought clearly. In the future, the Shen family couldn't be provoked. Even the Zheng family of Jade Wave Giant City had connections here, which was even more inconceivable. They were really shocked. Goblet after goblet of wine was drunk until the sky turned dark. Shen Chuanqiu's face was flushed red. This birthday banquet was quite impressive. He didn't expect that the Shen family would go from a prisoner to such a popular position in just a few days. In fact, they had already become the sole rulers of Guanxi town. Li Tianqing also drank a lot of wine. As a family of the Luoxia city, after the display of strength just now, these people respected the Chen family even more. Li Tianqing didn't refuse the people who came to greet him. Basically, he didn't refuse anyone. However, Li Zongjio didn't drink to his heart's content. It wasn't that Li Zongjio didn't like it. In his previous life, the things that accompanied Li Zongjio the most were wine and fire. After becoming famous, no one dared to provoke Li Zongjio. He didn't even need to kill people personally. Every day, he only needed to make pills and drink wine. Drinking wine was enough for him. However, what Li Zongjio was drinking were all century-old wines. Each jar was more precious than the previous one. Ordinary wines like this were nothing to him. If he had the time, he might as well use it to cultivate. Guanxi town was bustling with activity. Naturally, some people didn't like the Shen family's dominance, but there was nothing they could do. After all, the Shen family's strength was too terrifying. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were like the sun in the sky. However, in North Puff City, a rich and powerful family's courtyard looked like it had been abandoned for a long time. Spider webs were everywhere. Only a trace of fire was lit in the basement. In one of the rooms, there seemed to be something dark surging. The candlelight on the table flickered slightly. Suddenly, the black mass of things peeled off from both sides. It turned out to be black insects all over the place. A human face appeared on the peeled area. The whole body was covered by the black insects. There was no discomfort when the insect crawled. If an ordinary person saw such a scene, he would have fainted from fright. The blood poison bug I planted was actually killed by someone. Whoever dares to kill my insects is an enemy of me, Karasu. Go, my sons. Find him for me. You must find him. As soon as he finished speaking, the poisonous insects on his body scattered like flowers. Then he suddenly dashed in all directions at high speed. Chapter 159. At the back mountain of the Shen family's courtyard. In front of Li Zongjio stood the five-colored elk. Li Zongjio was very curious. If this spirit beast could cultivate, what would it be like? Hence, Li Zongjio summoned the five-colored elk. The white god inscription of the Dragon Clan is useful to me and the Dragon Clan. It should be useful to the five-colored elk. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Then he condensed his mental energy and sent the white god inscription into the five-colored elk's mind. At first, the five-colored elk's mind was in chaos. It was not blank. However, the five-colored elk felt that Li Zongjio did not have any evil intentions, so it let Li Zongjio use it. The five-colored elk, who had obtained the white god inscription, was obviously surprised. However, it was also confused because it did not know what it was. But it knew that this thing was very beneficial to it. The five-colored elk looked at Li Zongjio gratefully. Then it quickly ran away. If there is nothing else, I should go. The matter of the Northern Medicine City and the Northern Medicine Alliance has not been settled. It is time to solve it. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Of course, this matter had to be handled properly. The Northern Medicine Alliance wanted to make an example of the Li family. They were simply overestimating themselves. However, Li Zongjio could not leave at this time. Li Zongjio was also very interested in the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. In the next 6 months, the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion would take the entrance examination. The Heavenly Elixir Pavilion was a relatively free organization. However, it was an organization with high restrictions. After all, it was an organization of the dynasty. As long as you could pass the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion's examination, you could enter the pavilion. At the same time, it would not affect your ability to join any sect. Of course, if they had joined a faction that hated the dynasty, they would have been eliminated in the first round of identity checks. After entering the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion, you would be able to cultivate. If you can't keep up with the progress, you will be kicked out without hesitation. Basically, there was no mercy. Therefore, those who remained in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion were all elites among elites. They could even enjoy the subsidies brought by the dynasty. The Xingyan dynasty was very open-minded in this regard. Of course, I'll let you learn and give you a chance to become stronger. At the same time, I won't restrict you. Who wouldn't want such a thing? Firstly, it would be easier to learn, and secondly, it would make life easier in the future. They would be grateful for the generosity of the dynasty. Of course, if one wished to serve the empire loyally, one would also have the opportunity to be selected first. In fact, one's treatment would also be different from others. After all, geniuses and talents would be extremely popular no matter where they went and what era they were in. Before leaving, he still needed to find a crystal of the Thunderblood Spider King. She wanted to refine an antidote for her grandfather. His body was still the most important thing. Thunderblood spiders usually like to go out late at night. I'll go when it's dark. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. If he went during the day, he would have to waste some energy to find the Thunderblood spider. Therefore, he might as well set off at night to get twice the result with half the effort. Guanxi Town, Guardian Mansion. Now that Shen Nanxiao had moved into the Defender Mansion, he immediately changed the interior and exterior of the Defender Mansion. After all, the Defender Mansion had been turned into a mess by Lu Jianzhong previously and no one knew what this place was. Now that Shen Nanxiao was here, of course, he wanted to be fair and just and be a good official. However, the premise of being a good official was that it was beneficial to his family. Throw Lu Tingfei and the others into the dungeon. Imprison them for 3 years. Shen Nanxiao was quite fair. After being locked up for 3 years, he would probably be crippled by the time he came out. Moreover, Lu Tingfei was seriously injured. If he wasn't treated in time, he would probably die in a short period of time. However, Shen Nanxiao was merciless in this matter. Even the Lu family had sent someone to negotiate and wanted to pay a ransom to release them. However, Shen Nanxiao flatly refused. The fact that he didn't kill Lu Tingfei on the spot was already giving the Lu family face. 3 years of imprisonment was 3 years of imprisonment. Shen Nanxiao's temper was obviously quite stubborn. Shen Nanxiao, who had just taken office, obviously had a lot of things to deal with. However, just as the handover was being carried out, an urgent message came from one of his subordinates. "My lord, bad news. Lu Tingfei and the others in the dungeon suddenly died." Died suddenly? When Shen Nanxiao heard this, he was shocked. How could a prisoner who had been properly locked up in the prison suddenly die? Let the coroner investigate and see what's going on. Shen Nanxiao ordered. However, before he could leave, he saw a person walking in through the door. No need. They died from the backlash of my blood poison bugs. The person who walked in was wearing clothes with strange patterns carved on them. Upon closer inspection, the patterns on the clothes were actually some strange insects. They looked like they were alive, which made people shudder. "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the guardian residence?" Shen Nanxiao had brought his own bodyguard. However, the person who came in glanced at the bodyguard indifferently. "What a strong body. You can make a small incubation nest for me." Ketchisu sneered. In the next moment, Ketchisu's figure suddenly appeared beside Shen Nanxiao's bodyguard. The bodyguard wanted to draw his sword and kill him, but he saw that Ketchisu's hand was already stabbing towards his chest. The sharp fingernails were like a butcher's knife, easily piercing the bodyguard's chest. However, the bodyguard didn't die immediately. Instead, something seemed to be gradually drilling out from Ketchisu's wrist. Then, it followed Ketchisu's hand and drilled into the bodyguard's body. The bodyguard could only watch all this with his eyes wide open. He couldn't move at all. He could only watch as Ketchisu did everything, but he didn't have the chance to struggle. Shen Nanxiao was shocked when he saw this scene. He immediately got up and wanted to run outside. However, he saw that the guardian residence was already littered with corpses. There were corpses everywhere. There were fresh bloodstains on their chests. When Ketchisu came in, he had already killed all the bodyguards. There were also many city guards among them. These people had just arrived to set up a defense. However, they didn't even have the chance to call for help before they were killed. With your ability, you definitely won't be able to kill my blood poison bug. Do you know how much effort it takes to raise a blood poison bug? Tell me, who killed my blood poison bug? Ketchisu's voice came from behind Shen Nanxiao. Shen Nanxiao turned around, his eyes filled with horror. This Ketchisu was too strange. The aura on his body was extremely unusual and his methods were unique. Shen Nanxiao didn't know where such a person came from. Based on what he said, it seemed that he was here to look for Li Zongjio. Because Li Zongjio had trampled his blood poison bug to death. It's just a bug. Naturally, I killed it. What do you want? Shen Nanxiao made up his mind and said, "Very well." A cold light flashed in Ketchisu's eyes. He suddenly took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab Shen Nanxiao's throat. Then die. Chapter 160. Shen Nanxiao's entire body was grabbed by the neck and then lifted up. He couldn't breathe and his face had turned purple. He wanted to strangle Shen Nanxiao to death, but Ketchisu had an idea. Since you are the guardian of this place, I will let you see with your own eyes how your town will turn into a nest of worms. Let's start with you. Ketchisu used a knife to cut Shen Nanxiao's scalp. Blood immediately flowed out. Then he placed a pitch-black worm egg inside. After doing all this, Ketchisu sneered and threw Shen Nanxiao to the ground. Shen Nanxiao kept patting his head, trying to get the bug out of his head. However, it was futile. Get ready. At dawn, there will be a feast for all of you. Ketchisu raised his hands and saw black worms wriggling in the courtyard. The worms were moving back and forth, but it was too early. The sky had just darkened. At dawn, when everyone was sleeping soundly, it would be the best time for the poisonous insects to invade. No one would have thought that the poisonous insects would invade under such circumstances. When that time came, Guanxi Town would become a living hell. Meanwhile, Li Zongjio had arrived at a forest outside Guanxi Town. He had set off when the sky had turned dark. He had come to find the crystal of the Thunderblood Spider King for Old Master Shin Chuanqiu. Although the poison sac of an ordinary Thunderblood spider was useful, it wasn't very effective. Since he wanted to refine the antidote, he had to choose the best antidote. The wind of the night was like a sharp knife that sliced across his body. It was bone-piercing cold, as if his skin and flesh had been cut. Not only was the surroundings full of cold, but there were also countless terrifying dangers lurking within. The slightest carelessness could cost him his life. Mind lure. Li Zongjio released his mind power. Under normal circumstances, mind power was just a white chess piece. If he used it in a battle, he could only use it to attack. However, after cultivating the white god Fu, Li Zongjio's mind power had developed many functions. The mind lure directly formed a decoy in front of Li Zongjio and released the creature and smell of the Thunderblood spider's favorite. If there was a Thunderblood spider nearby, it would be able to arrive very quickly. Rustling sounds came from the forest ahead. Li Zongjio, who was standing on a tree, suddenly saw a pitch-black figure moving forward in the dark night. Because of its black armor, the Thunderblood spider was the perfect killer in the dark. If it sneaked up behind you, you might not even know it. This was the terrifying part of the Thunderblood spider. The reason why they were called thunderblood spiders was because the spider's venom was extremely strong. If the venom touched the body, it would be like being struck by lightning, and the entire body would enter a state of paralysis for a very long time. When you finally woke up, you would already be in the thunderblood spider's stomach. The thunderblood spider was attracted by Li Zongjiu's mind lure, but when it came here, it couldn't find any prey. It couldn't help but sniff around and run around. It seemed to be extremely crazy and irritable. Li Zongjiu's mind power also gradually moved toward the thunderblood spider's web. Obviously, the defensive mechanism of the thunderblood spider was even stronger. After being stimulated by the outside world, it started to run crazily, immediately fleeing in a panic. It's really sharp, but I'll follow you back to your nest, Li Zongjiu thought. Just now, he wanted to use his mind power to enslave the thunderblood spider, but after the thunderblood spider was stimulated, it directly chose to escape. As long as it escaped, there would be no enslavement. This was an instinctive reaction, but also the most correct reaction. Seeing the thunderblood spider escape, Li Zongjiu hurriedly chased after it. After chasing for about 7 to 8 miles, the thunderblood spider suddenly burrowed into a 1 meter tall and half a meter wide crack. Li Zongjiu directly chased after it. He took out a fire roll from his waist and threw it in. The entire cave was filled with the smell of the thunderblood spider. The surrounding spider webs and venom were also very obvious. There were many corpses of meta-beasts on the ground. After these meta-beasts were killed by the thunderblood spider, they would be dragged into the cave to be shared and eaten. His mind power swept out. These thunderblood spiders all had their own nests, so Li Zongjiu didn't see any thunderblood spiders in front of him. However, with a sweep of his mind power, he discovered that there were more than a dozen thunderblood spiders here. Even if a general-level expert came here and startled these thunderblood spiders, it would be difficult for him to escape. Li Zongjiu used his mind power to envelop his aura so that it wouldn't leak out. This spider nest was simply a nightmare for ordinary people. Li Zongjiu actually used his mind power to sweep around here. This was simply abnormal. This kind of strong mind power was quite good. After cultivating for 3,000 years in his previous life, he had seen everything. These were just some small scenes. Once, Li Zongjiu killed a meta-beast. He had really been swallowed by the meta-beast and had struggled out with great difficulty. Inside the meta-beast's stomach, it could be said to be overturning the seas and rivers as all sorts of sour and refreshing tastes assaulted him. When a person was rolling around in the intestines of a meta-beast and mixed with other things, he really couldn't even find the direction, let alone cut open the stomach of the meta-beast. He even wanted to attack from the inside. That would be a death that couldn't get any worse. It was simply courting death. Found the Thunderblood Spider King. Li Zongjiu also found the sleeping Thunderblood Spider King in the crevice of the mountain wall. This Thunderblood Spider King had already reached the peak of the second level. Although it was a little lacking, it was still enough for Li Zongjiu. If the effect was stronger, his grandfather's body might not be able to take it. Li Zongjiu took out the 6th Revolution steel blade that the Zheng family had just given him. The long blade in his hand was as bright as snow, and the blade was also much narrower than usual. There was less resistance when swinging it, and it was suitable for some nimble and fast blade techniques. But for Li Zongjiu, any blade technique was the same, as long as he could kill. Li Zongjiu's blade approached, but he accidentally stepped on an egg and broke it. The Thunderblood Spider King suddenly opened its eyes wide. Its spider legs suddenly stood up, and its whole body stood up with a boom. This spider leg was at least 5 meters long. Chapter 161. The Thunderblood Spider King's eyes emitted a bloodthirsty red light. When it saw Li Zongjiu in front of it, a mouth suddenly opened under its abdomen. Zzz. When it opened its mouth, countless juices were spurted out. It could feel the Thunderblood Spider King's anger. Li Zongjiu did not hesitate, and the long saber in his hand suddenly fell down. Swish. Then he heard a very smooth cutting sound. Then, the Thunderblood Spider King's body fell down. It smashed directly onto the floor. One of its legs was neatly cut off. The workmanship of this saber is not bad. Li Zongjio sighed inwardly. In a battle, the amplification effect that a good weapon could bring was simply unimaginable. Therefore, when Li Zongjio's saber fell down, the power of the long saber was displayed incisively and vividly. Swoosh! A stream of venom shot toward Li Zongjio like a sharp arrow. Li Zongjio's figure flashed, dodging this move, and at the same time, the steel saber in his hand once again slashed out. The speed of the saber was as fast as lightning. Facing the Thunderblood Spider King in front of him, he easily chopped off all 4 of its front legs. The Thunderblood Spider King's blood flowed on the floor. It made a sizzling sound, as if lightning had struck the floor. The unceasingly trembling power was hard for ordinary people to imagine. This kind of momentum was indeed difficult to resist. If the blood fell on Li Zongjio's body, perhaps a layer of his skin would be peeled off. Boom! The Thunderblood Spider King's body fell to the ground. Li Zongjio's long saber accurately stabbed into the Thunderblood Spider King's head and gently lifted it, taking out a dark green crystal core. With a snap, he stretched out his hand and caught it. His palm suddenly made a sizzling sound, and he could not help but feel a stinging pain. There was still the blood of the Thunderblood Spider King on this crystal, so Li Zongjio could not help but exclaim, "This thing's poison is really not weak." Li Zongjio exclaimed. However, the poison did not cause much harm to Li Zongjio. Soon, the poison was assimilated and eliminated by Li Zongjio's body. Creak, creak, creak. As soon as the Thunderblood Spider King died, all the Thunderblood spiders under its command became excited. They all became very active and rushed towards Li Zongjio. Boom, boom, boom. These Thunderblood spiders continued to attack with their legs, which were as black as ink and as hard as iron. The moment they landed, the rocks in front of them were shattered. Li Zongjio also didn't bother with these Thunderblood spiders. He wanted to leave immediately. However, the front was blocked by the spider web. Just a moment ago, these Thunderblood spiders had already arranged this, waiting for their prey to fall into the trap. If Li Zongjio directly jumped into the spider web, Li Zongjio would probably be entangled by the spider web, and then what awaited Li Zongjio would be countless venom attacks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A large amount of Thunderblood spiders' venom constantly splashed out. Even if Li Zongjio's reaction was fast, it was inevitable that the venom would stain his body. If his body was stained by the venom, it would instantly feel like he was being roasted by fire. The wound couldn't be healed immediately. Obviously, the venom of these Thunderblood spiders was very powerful. Damn it, these things are really difficult to deal with. Li Zongjio could not help but secretly say. Even so, Li Zongjio simply activated the power of the Golden Dragon Mark. The golden light covered his whole body, forming a defensive power. The venom could not fall into Li Zongjio's body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Li Zongjio also reaped the lives of many Thunderblood spiders. Finally, he used the bodies of these Thunderblood spiders to overturn the spider web in front of him. Li Zongjio was able to escape. Everyone, stay inside. When Li Zongjio drilled out of the crack, he also directly struck out with his palm, hitting the mountain wall. The mountain wall suddenly exploded with a loud bang. My strength has increased again. Li Zongjio did not expect that his punch would have such power. The mountain rocks directly rolled down from above, covering the crack in the mountain. Li Zongjio himself was also somewhat surprised. It seemed that with the improvement of the ancient Golden Tyrant Body technique, Li Zongjio's Golden Dragon Primordial Spirit could increase the strength of his Golden Dragon Primordial Spirit once again. This made Li Zongjio extremely surprised. I thought that my cultivation speed in this life was already very fast, but this Primordial Spirit is too powerful. With my current strength, Nappa might not be able to deal with Chu Aoran. Li Zongjio was also extremely surprised. Of course, if he wanted to kill Chu Aoran, Li Zongjio had many ways to do so. Li Zongjio said that he was not afraid because if they fought head-on, the gap between the two of them was not that big. This discovery made Li Zongjio somewhat excited. However, his clothes were already rotten and were splashed all over by the venom. Although his body was fine, The material of the clothes was very ordinary and could not withstand such terrifying venom. He took out a set of clean clothes from his storage ring and changed into them. This was a necessity for traveling in the wild, so it was very normal to bring a few sets of spare clothes. He checked the Thunderblood Spider King's primordial crystal again. The dark green crystal shone with an extremely strange light under the moonlight. If an ordinary person were to see such a color, they would probably panic. In this primordial crystal, one could vaguely see a shadow, which belonged to the Thunderblood Spider King's soul. Time to go back and refine pills. After his rebirth, Li Zhongjio always seemed to have endless things to do and was relatively busy. He even had very little time to calm down and cultivate. However, time had to be squeezed out. Moreover, it would be difficult to achieve good results if he cultivated too stably. Therefore, Li Zhongjio also needed a turbulent environment. Heroes emerge in troubled times. It was precisely because of the greater pressure in these troubled times that people had no choice but to cultivate even more desperately and think of ways to increase their strength. That was why such a situation would occur. Often, under such pressure, the chances of standing out would be greater. Along the way, Li Zhongjio's footwork did not have any pattern. However, after so many years of cultivation, he had already integrated some exquisite footwork into his body. Although his body had returned to the time when he was a teenager, his memories of the past were still there. He only needed to familiarize himself a little to recover. He might not be able to recover to his peak state, but it could be comparable to a 5th grade or even a 6th grade movement skill. No, there's a bloody smell in Guanxi town. Li Zhongjio felt something was wrong when he was hundreds of meters away from Guanxi town. Besides the bloody smell, there was something else. It was the smell of insect eggs. Oh no! As if he had realized something, Li Zhongjio's figure suddenly accelerated and rushed into Guanxi town. At this moment, there was silence in Guanxi town. Li Zhongjio's figure rushed into the Shun family's courtyard in an instant. He landed on the ground. There was no damage in the Shun family's courtyard. It was empty and silent. However, Li Zhongjio did not relax. This was because he did not even see where the Shun family's guards were. Chapter 162. Li Zhongjio stood alone in the empty courtyard. His calm gaze calmed Li Zhongjio down. After closing his eyes, the mental strength in his mind immediately spread out. Boom! In an instant, everything in the Shun family was under Li Zhongjio's control. On the surface, there did not appear to be anything wrong. In fact, the people in the house were all sleeping peacefully. Underground, Li Zhongjio's mental strength immediately sank into the ground. But at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the ground. Boom! The floor under Li Zhongjio's feet shattered. The surrounding floorboards were also constantly bursting open, drilling out from the floorboards. When Li Zhongjio saw these things burrowing out from the floor, his pupils shrank. Blood poison bugs. They were exactly the same as the blood poison bugs that he had trampled to death. But now, there were too many blood poison bugs. But these blood poison bugs were not big in size. Therefore, when Li Zhongjio saw these blood poison bugs, he understood that the people from the poison sect of the southern region had come looking for trouble. These people from the poison sect of the southern region were really arrogant. They actually dared to take the initiative to provoke him. I must be too kind. How dare these Tom, Dick, and Harry come looking for trouble? Li Zhongjio's eyes were piercingly cold. It had always been Li Zhongjio who found trouble with others, but no one had ever found trouble with Li Zhongjio. This was interesting. He did not expect that there would be someone who dared to step on Li Zhongjio's head and shit on him. Blood art. Li Zhongjio flipped his palms up and down, and the yuan power in his body burst out. Suddenly, a terrifying force erupted from Li Zhongjio's body and spread to the floor. Boom! The blood technique was like a layer of strong waves, and in an instant, all the bugs on the floor were shaken away. At the same time, a surge of energy was injected into these bugs. Suddenly, there was a series of crackling sounds, and these insects were all turned into dust in midair. An extremely strong smell of blood wafted over. It pervaded the courtyard of the Shun family. To actually be able to ignite the blood within a poisonous insect's body, your Yuan Sutra is also rather strange. A faint voice came from behind Li Zongjio. When he heard this voice, Li Zongjio did not waste any time. He immediately drew out the steel blade at his waist and slashed at the figure. Boom! Saber chi crisscrossed, shining brightly in the dark night. Ketchisu did not expect that Li Zongjio would be so decisive. He did not even need to identify his identity before attacking. Such a person must be a reckless man. Although he didn't expect this, Ketchisu wasn't afraid in the face of such a situation. He directly took off his cloak and waved it at Li Zongjio. Swoosh! The cloak swept out, flying towards Li Zongjio. As the cloak fluttered in the wind, Li Zongjio wanted to cut the other party into pieces with his blade. However, he saw the cloak turn into countless black moths that flew towards Li Zongjio, covering the sky and the sun. This was the method of the southern region's poison sect. They were extremely good at controlling these poisonous creatures. If this was the first time someone encountered such a formation, they would probably panic. With so many poisonous creatures attacking, if one was entangled, it would be almost impossible to escape. The saber chi landed on the ground. Not many moths were slashed. Seeing that the moths were about to approach and spray out a terrifying poisonous mist, Li Zongjio suddenly reached out his hand and touched his temple. He used his finger to guide the mental energy in his body. Destroy! Boom! An invisible force spread out, and the moths that filled the sky in front of him fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. These moths couldn't even get close to Li Zongjio before they were killed by Li Zongjio. What? Ketchisu's pupils shrank when he saw this scene. What these moths were most afraid of was mental strength. It could even be said that all those who were proficient in Gu refinement were extremely wary of mental strength. Mental strength masters were almost their natural enemies. Against such a person, there was basically no chance of winning. Of course, the mental energy of a mental energy master was also the thing they liked the most. You are actually a mental energy master. Interesting. There is actually a mental energy master in this small Guanxi town. Your mental energy is mine. Although the moths on the ground had died, Ketchisu didn't feel any heartache, because he was about to capture a mental energy master. As long as he could control Li Zongjio, he could refine Li Zongjio into his own poisonous insect. Poisonous insects with mental energy were even more terrifying and difficult to deal with. Swoosh! Li Zongjio's figure didn't stop at all. He didn't even intend to listen to Ketchisu's nonsense. His figure flickered as he charged towards Ketchisu. The long saber in his hand suddenly slashed out. Boom! A sharp saber chi was released. The saber chi swept forward like a sharp wave. Ketchisu, who felt the sharp saber chi, dodged to the side without hesitation. In the face of life and death, there was no need for grace. The most important thing now was to escape. Swoosh! Li Zongjio's saber slashed into the ground. The saber chi was muffled, but its penetrative power was extremely strong. A thin crack appeared on the ground. It was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. Ketchisu was shocked when he saw this. If he was hit just now, his outcome would be quite miserable. Vajra-gu! Ketchisu didn't dare to be careless. This Li Zongjio's attack was fierce and didn't give him any time to prepare. Thus, he had to quickly prepare himself. Ketchisu took out a jar from his bosom and was about to swallow it. But he heard a sinister voice from the side. It's too late to eat gu now. Li Zongjio's cold voice resounded in his ears. The moment those words were spoken, Ketchisu broke out in cold sweat. His body stiffened on the spot. Eating gu was a method. Only gu masters like them knew. As gu masters, they only had the ability to refine insects in gu. But when facing enemies, they had many methods. Some refined themselves into gu. There were also people who would prepare these gu and eat them to increase their status and strength. Ketchisu was an external gu's cultivation method. In every battle, he had to eat gu to deal with different situations. This Vajra gu, after eating it, would give him the strength of Vajra. But before he could eat it, Li Zongjio's saber arrived. Swoosh! The horizontally tempered steel saber pierced through Ketchisu's shoulder. Instantly, it hit his wrist. Sharp saber chi. Ketchisu's wrist was instantly cut off. That Vajragu also fell to the ground naturally. A golden beetle lay quietly on the ground. Puchi, at the place where the wrist was cut, blood spurted out like a fountain. Chapter 163. Ketchisu looked at his broken wrist and saw blood spurting out non-stop. He was stunned on the spot. Then he felt an intense pain assaulting him. Ah! His pained roar echoed throughout Guanxi town. Bang! The roar stopped abruptly as Li Zongjio punched the back of Ketchisu's head. Ketchisu's body fell to the ground, his head hitting the ground. Another saber slashed down. His two calves were cut off by Li Zongjio. Blood is flowing. Ketchisu didn't expect that he would fall in such a remote town. However, Ketchisu did not give up hope. It was just a severed arm and leg. As long as he was given time, he could recover. There was something called the resurrection silkworm chrysalis. It could even revive a dead person. Its power was incomparably miraculous. However, the premise was that Ketchisu had to be alive to prepare the resurrection silkworm chrysalis. If you kill me, everyone in this town will die. They have all been poisoned by my soul-devouring chrysalis. Ketchisu used the last of his strength to shout out the last sentence. He was worried that Li Zongjio did not know anything and directly chopped off his head. If that happened, everyone in the town would die. However, this had nothing to do with him because he was already dead. Nothing was more important than being alive. Oh, soul-devouring chrysalis? Sorry, I just happen to know how to break it. Li Zongjio sneered. This sentence caused Ketchisu to sink into an ice cave. He fell into the endless ice. What did he mean by, you just happen to know how to break it? These Gu techniques were the most secretive methods of their tribes. Ordinary people would not have the opportunity to learn them. This Li Zongjio, this young man in front of him, actually knew how to break these Gu techniques. These tribes that were hidden in the extinct mountain range had yet to come out on a large scale. Most of the time, they were only carrying out some secret activities. Even the appearance and use of Gu techniques were extremely rare. The outside world did not know anything about their tribes. Breaking Gu techniques was 10 times more difficult than planting Gu techniques. This is impossible, impossible, Ketchisu murmured. However, Li Zongjio directly threw Ketchisu, who had lost his arms and legs, into a water tank nearby. He casually threw out an elixir. The elixir entered the water and immediately formed an elemental energy liquid to ensure that Ketchisu's life would not end so quickly. The poisonous insects on the ground. Li Zongjio first went to Li Tianqing's room to check on Li Tianqing and the others. Soul-devouring chrysalis. Li Zongjio said in his heart. Beside Li Tianqing and Shen Xinxiao's pillows, there was a small blue bug. Shen's chrysalis like a fly. Everyone in the Shen family was unconscious. It could be seen that the entire city was deathly silent. If Li Zongjio had returned a little later, the entire Guanxi town would have been controlled by this Gu master. Everyone would have sacrificed their flesh and blood to become the habitat for these insects. This was a very vicious method. They actually dared to commit such atrocities. The people of the southern tribes were too bold. There were at least tens of thousands of people in Guanxi town. If such a thing happened and all of them were used to refine Gu, this kid's fate would probably be very miserable. The dynasty would absolutely not allow such a thing to continue. The way to break the soul-devouring chrysalis was to control Ketchisu's mental strength. Then, use Ketchisu's mental strength to control these insects and make them walk out again. Of course, if Ketchisu was willing to do it himself, that would naturally be the best. However, Li Zongjio would not trust an enemy. When he saw Li Zongjio appear in front of him, Ketchisu no longer had the strength to raise his head. He just hung there powerlessly, looking like he was waiting for death. Li Zongjio slapped Ketchisu awake. Look at my eyes. When Li Zongjio's voice fell, Ketchisu could not help but raise his head and look into Li Zongjio's eyes. When he saw Li Zongjio's pupils, Ketchisu felt like he had fallen into an endless black hole. Buzz. There was an explosion in his mind. Li Zongjio's mental strength smoothly invaded. The mental strength turned into a white chess piece and directly invaded Ketchisu's mind. Then, he found that the white chess piece was actually involuntarily devouring Ketchisu's mental strength. This white god Fu actually has the effect of devouring mental strength. Li Zongjio was also shocked. This effect was surprising, but now was not the time to care about it. When Li Zongjio's mental strength occupied Ketchisu's mental world, he found that this kid was actually hiding a shocking and vicious plan. At the same time, he also understood that this kid was just a bait that the southern tribe had released to scout ahead. The real poison sect had yet to take shape. It was still brewing. So, the poison sect of the southern tribe has yet to take shape. Then I'll strangle you in the cradle. This might be the advantage of being reborn. There was no need to wait for things to really happen to deal with them. He could directly get rid of them before they took shape. Of course, he needed to have enough strength to do so. This information only flashed through Li Zongjio's mind. Gather all the soul-devouring insects. This was an extremely difficult process. It could only be done with a strong mental strength. Otherwise, the coverage of the soul-devouring insects would not be able to continue expanding, and the situation would become extremely bad. During the process of summoning, Li Zongjio's mental strength was rapidly consumed. Some soul-devouring insects had already quickly crawled out. But now, they had only covered less than 1/10 of the area. It could guarantee that the Shen family's people would recover. Although Li Zongjio was not a saint, he was not a saint. But under the circumstances, Li Zongjio would try his best to save as many people as possible. White Dragon Original Spirit. Li Zongjio summoned his original spirit. The appearance of the White Dragon Original Spirit also increased Li Zongjio's mental strength. The coverage also gradually expanded. Soul-devouring insects crawled out of nearly half of the area. But suddenly, Ketchisu's mental strength rapidly withered. Li Zongjio knew that Ketchisu was about to die. His mental strength had already begun to dissipate. Charge! I haven't let you die yet. Li Zongjio's palm hit Ketchisu's body. That terrifying power suddenly surged out. The Yuan power immediately rushed into Ketchisu's body. Ketchisu, whose aura was about to dissipate, once again raised his spirit. At this moment, Li Zongjio also released his mental energy, which had soared. Buzz. Li Zongjio's mental strength suddenly disappeared when it was released. Li Zongjio had already done his best for this wave of energy. 9/10. There are still 1/10 of the people who have not been covered. Li Zongjio could not help but clench his fists. In Guanxi town, there were at least thousands of lives that could not be saved. Ketchisu was already dead. All the summoned soul-devouring insects. They all gathered in the Shen family's courtyard. Li Zongjio directly burned these soul-devouring insects with fire. Southern tribe, wait for your death. Li Zongjio slowly said. Just as Li Zongjio heaved a sigh of relief, he suddenly remembered something. Just now, when he invaded Ketchisu's mental strength, he also learned from Ketchisu's memory. His uncle, Shen Nanxiao, who was still in the Guardian Mansion, was implanted with blood-poisonous insects. Not good. The blood-poisonous insects have not been removed. Chapter 164. It was the blood poison bug that was planted in Shen Nanxiao's body. It had the same effect as the blood poison bug that Li Zongjio had stomped to death in the morning. Normally, it would hide in the body and would not have any effect. However, the body would gradually be controlled by the blood poison bug. When its poison was integrated into the body's blood, it would become the final puppet. But now that Ketchisu was dead, there would be no one to control the puppet. In this way, Shen Nanxiao could only pray for his own fortune. He might even become a free puppet, killing wherever he went. Sooner or later he would lose his mind. Li Zongjio entered the guardian residence. On the ground, he could still see some bugs running away. Their master was dead. These bugs' ability to survive was actually very low. After all, these insects needed someone to take care of them. If there was no one to take care of them, they would die very quickly. Even some of their natural enemies would be able to easily kill them. Can't find him? Li Zongjio came to the guardian residence, but he did not see Shen Nanxiao's figure. According to Ketchisu's memory, Shen Nanxiao should be here. As for Li Zongjiu's mental power, it was completely exhausted when he saved them. Now, he needed some time to slowly recover before he could use it again. Li Zongjiu looked around the guardian residence, but he did not see Shen Nanxiao's figure. Suddenly, Li Zongjiu thought of something and quickly rushed back to the Shen residence. Save me. Just as Li Zongjiu returned to the Shen residence, he heard a scream. It was Shen Yi. Li Zongjiu immediately chased in the direction of the scream. When Li Zongjiu flew to the top of the roof, he saw a 5-colored elk tangling with a person below. Shen Yi was very scared and shrank to the side, as if she was extremely afraid of the person in front of her. And the person who attacked Shen Yi just happened to be Shen Nanxiao. The blood poison bug needed to completely control Shen Nanxiao. It needed to make Shen Nanxiao lose his mind. That was why Shen Nanxiao had come to find Shen Yi and wanted to kill her. The blood poison bug read the subconscious hidden in Shen Nanxiao's heart. The 5-colored elk was a spirit beast and could protect Shen Yi. After it noticed that Shen Nanxiao's condition was not right, it also came to protect Shen Yi. He continued to charge forward, blocking Shen Nanxiao outside. It seemed that Shen Yi had not been invaded by the soul-devouring worms. Otherwise, she would not have woken up so quickly. Li Zongjiu also saw the corpse of a bug beside Shen Yi's feet. It was trampled to death by the 5-colored elk. However, the 5-colored elk did not seem to be able to stop Shen Nanxiao, who was in a berserk state. Shen Nanxiao leaped up, grabbed the 5-colored elk, and flung it to the side. The 5-colored elk rolled to the side with a bang and was sent flying. When facing these wild animals, the instincts of a hunter were more than enough. "Father, what's wrong with you?" Shen Yi had no way out. She curled up in the corner. Compared to her own safety, she was more worried about why her father had become like this. He had become so crazy and irritable. He did not look like her father at all. When would his father change back to how he used to be? Die. Shen Nanxiao's eyes were bloodshot. The 5-colored elk was heavily injured and could not get up. Then, Shen Nanxiao leaped up and charged toward Shen Yi. Boom! Shen Yi cried out and closed her eyes. However, she heard a loud bang. Shen Nanxiao's body was sent flying. Shen Yi could not help but open her eyes. She immediately saw a figure blocking in front of her. Even if she only saw a pair of feet, Shen Yi already knew the identity of the person who came. Cousin Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu turned around and glanced at Shen Yi. The little girl's panicked face also revealed a smile and a look of surprise. Shen Yi was surprised and at the same time, her eyes widened. Cousin Zongjiu, my father has gone crazy. As soon as Shen Yi's voice fell, Shen Nanxiao once again rushed toward Li Zongjiu. Although Shen Nanxiao was Li Zongjiu's uncle. But now, Li Zongjiu had no choice but to make a move. Sorry, uncle. Li Zongjiu clenched his fists. When Shen Nanxiao rushed over, he took the lead and punched Shen Nanxiao's head. Bang! Shen Nanxiao's body stopped. His eyes seemed to have recovered a moment of clarity. However, his body involuntarily went limp and he fainted on the ground. Your father has been poisoned. Thank Hua, otherwise you would have died. Li Zongjiu said. The 5-colored elk struggled to get up and returned to Shen Yi's side. Shen Yi touched the elk with heartache. Its sudden appearance was too terrifying. It's called Xiao Hua. More or less. Li Zongjiu said. He also carried Shen Nanxiao and brought him to the medical hall in the Shen family's courtyard. They temporarily settled him down. At the same time, Li Zongjiu took out a few silver needles from the medical hall. Li Zongjiu also dabbled in acupuncture in his previous life. However, there were too many ways to do it and it was extremely boring. Li Zongjiu only knew a few superficial aspects. He temporarily used the silver needles to seal all the acupuncture points on Shen Nanxiao's body. This was to prevent the poison from spreading. At the same time, he also had to prevent the poisonous bloodworm from becoming excited again. Now that the poisonous bloodworm was out of control, its excitement level was also intermittent. After being excited for a while, it restrained itself. Similarly, the poisonous bloodworm also needed to recover its energy. Shen Yi snuggled up with the 5-colored elk and fell into a deep sleep. This night could be said to be too torturous. However, Li Zongjio frowned. It wasn't an easy task to extract the blood poison bug from his body. At the very least, Ketchisu was dead. Moreover, Ketchisu might not have the ability to remove the worm. It was impossible not to save him. In any case, he was his uncle and his mother's brother. Li Zongjio sat cross-legged on the ground. It was not until early morning when the first ray of sunlight fell on the room. The people in the town felt as if they had suddenly woken up. Li Tianqing and the others woke up. Their instincts told them that something terrible seemed to have happened last night. In the Shen family's courtyard, there were signs of a great battle everywhere. "You're awake." Li Zongjio came to Li Tianqing and the others. "Last night, our Guanxi town was attacked by a Gu master from the southern border tribe." Then, Li Zongjio told Li Tianqing and the others about what happened last night. Then, everyone came to Shen Nanxiao and looked at the unconscious Shen Nanxiao. Everyone's hearts were heavy. How could this be? "Zongjio, your uncle, can he be saved?" Shen Xinxiao saw his brother lying motionless on the bedboard. This scene was indeed somewhat frightening. Everyone's gaze was focused on Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio slowly raised his head and finally sighed. Although it was a very difficult task, Li Zongjio had no choice but to ask someone for help. "There is a way." Chapter 165. Li Zongjio did not say anything. He just said that it would take at least 5 days for him to come and go. However, Li Zongjio was not sure if he could invite him over in 5 days. During this time, no one could get close to Shen Nanxiao. Before he left, Li Zongjio gave Shen Xinxiao an elixir. It was an antidote to help Shen Chuanxiao get rid of the accumulated toxins in his body. In just one night, the things that Li Zongjio had experienced were much more than they had imagined. Previously, it was said that refining this elixir required the Thunderblood Spider King's Yuan crystal. Now that Li Zongjio was able to refine this elixir, it meant that Li Zongjio had fought with the Thunderblood Spider King last night. He simply could not believe how Li Zongjio had managed to do it. After giving instructions, Li Zongjio left. As for the stall in Guanxi town, Li Zongjio did not need to deal with it. Li Zongjio did not care about those who had died. After all, Li Zongjio had saved so many people. For them, it was already a great kindness. If anyone dared to say anything, Li Zongjio would not hesitate to tear their mouths apart. Li Zongjio spent a day on the road. This was a junction of the Blackwater Forest Ring Road. There was a passage that could lead to the exit of the Xingyan dynasty. However, in the Blackwater Forest, there were many difficulties and dangers. Although such inter-dynasty exchanges were rare, one could still gain a lot by going there once. As long as one was well prepared, one could walk out of the Blackwater Path. This path was called the Blackwater Path. The Blackwater Path extended into the Blackwater Forest for about 20 to 30 miles. There were many supply points along the way. However, on the Blackwater Path of the Blackwater Forest, there was a very mysterious place. In any other place, there would be some fights. For example, in some unscrupulous shops, there would be murders and robberies. Even the tea would be poisoned to steal the goods. Or perhaps bandits disguised themselves as merchants and robbed the inn. Such cases of black eating black, white eating black, and black eating white were common occurrences. However, there was no such thing here. This was a thatched hut. Inside the hut was a simple clinic. The identity of the owner of the clinic was a mystery. However, the most important thing was that the people in the clinic had extraordinary medical skills. No matter what illness they were suffering from, they could treat it for free. As long as one had the opportunity to bring some medicinal herbs to this person in the future, it would be fine. Most importantly, the owner of the clinic was a very beautiful girl. Although she was beautiful, she did not have the slightest arrogance. Instead, she was very down-to-earth and gave people a feeling of closeness. For these adventurers, when the girl smiled, it was already a very good pain reliever. The place connected to the Blackwater Forest was the Blackwater Forest. In the Blackwater Forest, there were countless treasures and elixirs. There were even some ruins that appeared frequently. The sudden appearance of some experts' tombs attracted countless treasure hunters. The Blackwater Forest was also called the Yuanbao Forest. Therefore, there were many people who came here to adventure. On the other side of the Blackwater Forest, there was an equally powerful behemoth that was close to the Qingyan dynasty. The Haike dynasty. For most people, they could only live in the Qingyan dynasty for their whole life. Anyway, the Qingyan dynasty's territory was already very vast. The land was vast and rich in resources. However, for some of the top experts, although the Qingyan dynasty was big, there was still a boundary. For example, Li Zhongjiu in his previous life. When he reached the level of Li Zhongjiu, the evil lord, he would travel everywhere to find a way to break through. Li Zhongjiu even had a high status in the Haike dynasty. After all, people who had reached the Supreme Being realm were respected by the three dynasties. Any Supreme Being realm expert had the power to topple a dynasty. However, that was the matter of his previous life. On the Blackwater path, because there were too many people walking on it, it gradually formed a path. On the path, there were often groups of 3 to 5 people who were dressed strangely. Some people were even riding on ferocious primordial beasts. They kept a certain distance from each other. Even if they saw each other from afar, they would choose to take a detour. They absolutely could not meet each other. Even if they really could not meet each other, they would be extremely vigilant against each other. Li Zhongjiu appeared on the Blackwater path alone. When many people saw Li Zhongjiu, they couldn't help but cast sidelong glances at him. After all, anyone who had the guts to come to such a place alone was either a hidden expert or a fool. If he was a fool, he would basically become a pile of bones here. It seemed that the people walking around here were all people. However, in reality, they were all wild beasts who ate people without spitting out the bones. Looking at Li Zhongjiu's travel-worn appearance and the fact that he did not even have a weapon in his hand, many people still looked at Li Zhongjiu's finger. There was a ring on this finger. Just from its appearance, this ring had to be the storage ring. Moreover, it seemed that the storage ring's level was not low. These storage rings were also divided into different levels. The larger the space, the more solid it was, and the more expensive it was to construct. Even if it was the size of a tower, the cost of constructing it would already be tens of millions of gold yuan coins. Even if it was converted into purple yuan, it would be in the tens of thousands. If there was nothing, then this guy's things must be in the storage ring on his finger. Li Zhongjiu only wanted to walk to the nameless clinic in front of him. The memory of 3,000 years ago also made Li Zhongjiu think hard about what kind of place it was. Just as Li Zhongjiu was thinking about it, someone finally could not help but ask. They followed Li Zhongjiu all the way and did not see any guards. Moreover, the road was unobstructed and they could see everything at a glance. At a glance, they could see that Li Zhongjiu did not seem to have any friends. This was already the Blackwater Forest. Even if they killed Li Zhongjiu, according to the dynasty's laws, they might not be able to get rid of him. Moreover, the dynasty did not have clear regulations in the wilderness. After all, the wilderness was too big. Even if they broke the law, what could they do? There was no time to care. A group of 4 people. One of them, who was thin and small, took the initiative to walk toward Li Zhongjiu. The other 3 first scanned the surroundings and issued a warning to the people around them. One of them was draped in tiger skin and wore a hat made of tiger bones. One of them was wearing bear skin and a piece of jewelry made of bear paws hung around his neck. The other person was a woman with a scar on her face. She had sharp nails on her fingers and a mink scarf around her neck. Her long hair covered half of her face. If one only looked at the intact half of her face, this woman's beauty was not bad. Although she was slightly plump, she had the appearance of a mature woman. It's the 4 Black Inferno ghosts. It's said that they specialize in killing people who are alone. Chapter 166. Li Zhongjiu already knew that someone was following behind him. However, he didn't take it to heart. Someone bumped into someone. Help, someone bumped into someone. He's the one who bumped into someone. Don't let him escape. The skinny man from the 4 Black Inferno suddenly fell to the ground. He covered his leg and rolled back and forth on the ground. Although this move was very old-fashioned, it was very effective. It was indeed a classic. Li Zongjio originally didn't turn around to look, but he saw that person quickly walk in front of him. It was obvious that he was looking for Li Zongjio. "Brat, you bumped into my friend and you still want to leave?" The man with the tiger bone hat looked at Li Zongjio with jealousy and fierceness. He bared his teeth and roared. His majestic body gave people the feeling that he was a wild beast standing in front of them. In addition to the intimidating equipment on his body, it was likely that he would be easily frightened by the person in front of him. Li Zongjio glanced at the person in front of him. There wasn't much fear in his eyes. This brat was actually not afraid. The man nicknamed Husha was also surprised. After all, there were very few people who wouldn't be afraid when encountering such a situation. Even if you weren't afraid, you should at least show some expression, right? A ding sound rang out. Li Zongjio flicked a gold coin and it fell towards Husha. Husha subconsciously caught the gold coin in his hand. In this moment of distraction, Li Zongjio had already brushed past him. Husha was left in a mess on the spot. What was the meaning of this gold coin? Was he trying to dismiss a beggar? When Husha saw the gold coin, he felt that he had been greatly insulted. "How was it? How much did you get?" The one lying on the ground was relatively skinny, so he was called Monkey Sha. He was also the one with the most tricks. Now that he saw that Husha actually made Li Zongjio leave directly, he must have gotten something. However, when Husha got up and saw that there was only one gold coin in Husha's hand, he was instantly stunned. What was the meaning of this? One gold coin? Fuck. I'm going to cripple him. Without another word, the monkey demon picked up the two short sticks at his waist. There were some small needles hidden on the short sticks. When some people were fighting, they thought that the rod didn't have much power and directly reached out to grab it. Naturally, they would be pierced by the needle. In addition, the poison on the needle was enough to paralyze a 5th-grade master for at least 5 minutes. A strong gust of wind blew towards Li Zongjio. Boom! Monkey Sha leaped up and launched an attack. However, in the end, he realized that his attack had missed its target. How could this be? Could it be that his eyes were playing tricks on him? Just as Ho Sha was surprised, he felt a figure standing behind him. What? Ho Sha's heart skipped a beat. The stick in his hand subconsciously swung behind him. He had to catch his opponent off guard. This strike was aimed directly at the head of the person behind him. If he was hit, he would definitely explode like a watermelon. Bang! In an instant, brain matter splattered everywhere. Blood splattered everywhere, and the shattered skull turned into bullets as it smashed towards the side, causing countless dust to fly up from the ground. A headless corpse appeared in front of Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio put down the stone in his hand. It was still stained with blood and hair. Plop! The monkey demon's body fell to the ground. The stick in his hand also rolled to the side. When Husha turned around, a pool of blood splattered on his face. He couldn't help but wipe his eyes. Motherfucker, what's shooting at my face? When he opened his palm and saw that it was covered in blood, he was stunned. Then he saw the monkey demon in front of Li Zongjio. From Husha's angle, he couldn't see that the monkey demon's head had been smashed. However, the ground in front of the monkey demon was also covered in blood. Immediately, he knew that this kid had seriously injured the monkey demon. How dare you attack after bumping into someone? I, Husha, will definitely twist your head off and use it as a urinal. Husha roared. Xiong Sha and Yao Sha, who were behind him, knew that the situation wasn't good. Obviously, they had to take action and fight to convince the other party. Li Zongjio turned around. Looking at Husha's eyes, Husha suddenly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His legs stiffened and he stood rooted to the ground. Bang! The two people who were about to rush forward to kill Li Zongjio suddenly stopped in their tracks. They saw that there was a bloody hole in the left side of Husha's heart. A hand reached out from the bloody hole, holding something that was beating. Thump, thump. Even though they were separated by such a great distance, they could still feel the powerful beating of the heart. The remaining two people looked at each other. When they saw this scene, they obviously didn't dare to believe it. This must be fake. How could this be possible? Although Husha looked strong, his strength was at the level of a genuine 7th-grade Yuan master. A 7th-grade Yuan master, in addition to his overbearing strength, was already a dangerous thing for ordinary adventurers. Hu Sha lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole in his chest. And Li Zongjio's calm expression. This scene. The surrounding people were also watching from afar. They watched as Li Zongjio slowly withdrew his hand from Hu Sha's chest. Soon after, Hu Sha's body emitted a loud bang. Like a mountain, it smashed into the ground. Hu Sha's eyes were wide open. He truly died with his eyes wide open. He didn't even see clearly how Li Zongjio killed him. It was only when Li Zongjio took out his heart that Hu Sha felt pain. He felt that Li Zongjio was already in front of him. The gold coin in his hand was taken back by Li Zongjio. His blood-stained hand rubbed it on Hu Sha's body. Then he placed the gold coin back into his pocket. Li Zongjio looked in the direction of the two people in front of him. Without saying anything, he turned around and left. In less than 5 breaths of time, 2 more corpses appeared on the ground. One was a 5th-grade Yuan master, and the other was a 7th-grade Yuan master. These were 2 Yuan master-level experts. Just like that, they lay on the ground without moving. One of them didn't have a head, and the other didn't have a heart. As for Li Zongjio, he walked away as if nothing had happened. When some people saw Li Zongjio walk over, they even subconsciously hid behind him. The aura of this youth was too terrifying. With such skills, there was probably no one present who could stop him. "I'll go kill him." Xiong Sha wanted to go up and fight with Li Zongjio. However, he was grabbed by the woman beside him and slapped on the head. "Are you an idiot? Can't you see that he doesn't even put us in his eyes?" Chapter 167. She stared at Li Zongjio's departing figure. The woman sucked in a deep breath of cold air. If Li Zongjio were to walk towards them, the two of them would definitely die. They had already lost 2 people before they could even see how the other party attacked, even if they had given it their all. At most, they could only hold on for a little longer. There was no superfluous talk, and he directly attacked. Such ruthlessness. How could one ignore such ruthlessness? The 4 Black Inferno demons were originally very cruel, and their methods were also incomparable to that of ordinary people. However, when facing Li Zongjio, they still paled in comparison. This was a true example of a ruthless person who did not speak much. Usually, ruthless people did not speak much. Therefore, the woman immediately knew that Li Zongjio was not someone to be trifled with. She was already very lucky to be alive. If she continued to charge forward, she probably would not see the sun tomorrow. Where did such a young man come from? It made one curious. When the people on the road saw Li Zongjio's figure, they shuddered and kept their distance. Along the way, Li Zongjio's story had already been passed down by word of mouth. Almost everyone who met him would talk about what they had seen of Li Zongjio today. This was really surprising. To think that such a person would appear on this path. Li Zongjio followed his memory and inquired many times before he finally found the secluded courtyard hidden in the forest. This should not be the same place as before. Li Zongjio thought. When he saw her, it should have been half a year after his family's accident. It was still early. No wonder he could not find her when he returned to the original place. Even the Blackwater Road itself had undergone some changes and was constantly changing. At this moment, there were many people lying in the courtyard of the small house in the forest. Their bodies were clean, but they were all wrapped with bandages. A strong herbal smell could be smelled from afar. But at this moment, the gate was wide open. When he saw this scene, Li Zongjio couldn't help but frown. There was some noise coming from the room. "Cut the crap. You shameless woman, swindling people all day long. Now that you've killed my little brother, you can either compensate me with money or with him, or I'll burn down your restaurant." A rough voice roared angrily. However, there was a hint of pride in his voice. The forest clinic had already become a sacred place in the hearts of many mercenaries and adventurers. Those who came and went had to be respectful because the forest clinic had once saved their lives. But today, something like this happened. A person was sent here yesterday for treatment. Originally, it was just a simple wound infection. After treating the wound and changing the medicine, it would be fine. However, when he woke up this morning, this person was actually dead. The forest clinic was originally a place to treat illnesses and save people, but now it had killed someone. Even if you saved 100 people, as long as you killed one person, you would be considered a murderer. No one would remember your kindness. Even the people from the forest clinic were clenching their fists tightly. Although their faces were filled with rage, they stammered and didn't say anything. Everyone, come and be the judge. My little brother's wound was inflamed yesterday and he came to exchange for a set of medicinal herbs. Who knew that the medical center gave him the wrong medicine? When he woke up this morning, his body was already cold. As his big brother, how can I just watch my little brother die in vain? Don't be fooled by the people in this clinic. In my opinion, they are clearly using my body as an experiment to test their medicinal formula. Anyway, if I die because they don't want to take any money. Therefore, they can use our bodies to test medicine without any scruples. Otherwise, how could my little brother die? When they heard the man in black robes roar like this, some of the people in the forest clinic were so angry that they were trembling. They couldn't wait to tear the man's mouth apart. However, when they heard the man in black robes say this, some of them suddenly remembered. That's right. I was wondering why the method she used was different from what I've seen. So this is the reason. That's right. I also feel that my wound is strange. Could they have used some forbidden medicine to overdraft our potential? Otherwise, how could it heal so quickly? Some of the people who were there to treat their injuries thought about it and found that it made sense. That was because the methods and herbs used by the people in the forest clinic were things they had never seen before. In fact, the recovery effect was 3 to 5 times better than that of an ordinary doctor. Previously, they had thought that it was because of medicine master Nan Xing's medical skills. However, now it seemed that it was possible that it was an experiment. Surrounded by the crowd. A woman in a gray long-sleeved shirt, her beautiful hair hanging down her back and down to her waist, was tied up with a delicate and pretty bow. When the man spoke, there was no fluctuation in his emotions. Instead, she quietly watched the man in front of her speak. This woman was the owner of the forest clinic. Everyone called her medicine master Nan Sheng. She claimed to be a medicine master who opened a clinic to save people and didn't charge a single cent. She only needed to bring some medicine for her when it was convenient. When such a bodhisattva appeared here, anyone would be pleasantly surprised. They would even be shocked that such a beautiful person in front of them had learned the skills of a medicine master and had specially come to such a place to save them. However, today, because of this incident, the image of the Linzhong Clinic and medicine master Nansheng had been greatly tarnished. They even began to suspect that medicine master Nansheng had put some kind of poison in their stomachs that could control them. Impossible. Medicine master Nansheng is definitely not that kind of person. Old Third Tai, have you forgotten how your leg was healed? That's right. If she had any ulterior motives, why would she come looking for you idiots? Why would she come looking for you people who should have died a few months ago, or even half a year ago? Then tell us, what method did this woman use to cure all of you? What kind of medicine did she use? How could such a small amount of medicine in this small clinic be able to cure so many of us? There are so many kinds of diseases. Don't you think there's a problem? The people on both sides immediately began to argue. Between each other, they were very fiery and impolite. After all, they were all extraordinary people. Those who made a living here could risk their lives at any time. Why would they care about such things? Now, some people still believed in medicine master Nansheng, but some people were already standing on the side of the man in black. How much do you want to pay? Medicine master Nansheng finally spoke when the scene was extremely noisy. When he spoke, he was still as unhurried as before. Chapter 168. How much money do I have to pay? Hearing Nansheng's words, the rest of the people also quieted down. There were a few helpers beside Nansheng. It was said that these helpers were hired from the city. They were there to protect Nansheng and they looked very ordinary. Li Zhongjio had already squeezed his way in. He hid in the crowd but did not dare to enter. He did not dare to look at the girl. Li Zhongjio owed Nansheng in his previous life. Therefore, In this life, Li Zongjio did not dare to face Nanxing directly. Pay? In that case, alchemist Nanxing wants to use money to settle this matter? Fine, I am alone and it is not easy to protect my rights. Your clinic is so big, just give me a few million gold coins and send me away. The black-clothed man heard Nanxing's words and he did not care. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, obviously he had already achieved his goal. Not only did he want money, but he also wanted Nanxing to lose his reputation. On the surface, it seemed like alchemist Nanxing was only doing this for money. But in reality, if alchemist Nanxing had taken out so much money, it meant that he had a guilty conscience and admitted that he had caused the death of the patient. Although he still didn't know why alchemist Nanxing would do this. However, there must be someone behind all of this. Excuse me, please let me in. Li Zongjio hid in the back and took a deep breath. He finally patted the shoulder of the person in front of him, indicating that he should go in. If he did not come to find her, then there would be no way to remove the blood poison bug from Shen Nanxiao's body. At that time, Shen Nanxiao would become a walking corpse. His mother, Shen Xinxiao, would be in so much pain that she would not want to live. After all, something had happened to her own brother. Therefore, no matter what, Li Zongjio had to bring Nanxing back. Little kid, go play at the side. The tall man in front of him turned around and saw that the person beside him was actually a little kid. What was there to give in to? However, in the next moment, the tall man suddenly felt as if his body was lifted into the air. It was as if there was a force grabbing him, causing his body to involuntarily fly high into the air. Li Zongjio grabbed the man in front of him. Then he threw it out with a whoosh. The commotion here also shocked the surrounding people. After all, such a big person was directly thrown out, how could they ignore it? However, when they saw that the person who attacked was actually a young man, they were all shocked. Medicine Master Nanxing's line of sight was blocked by the black-clothed man in front of him. He didn't see Li Zongjio, he only saw the brawny man who flew out. This comical scene caused alchemist Nanxing's heart to relax slightly. The black-clothed man seemed to have seen the smile in Nanxing's alchemist's eyes. Furthermore, his gaze had also landed behind him. The black-clothed man furiously turned around and looked behind him. But all he saw was a hand. He reached out to grab him. Well, in the next instant, Li Zongjio directly threw the black-clothed man out. To Li Zongjio, no matter what the black-clothed man had to do, it wasn't as urgent as his matter. Therefore, he should just stand aside and wait. With a bang, the black-clothed man fell outside the door. There were already several people outside the door, stacked on top of each other. Medicine Master Nanxing and the others looked at the young man standing in front of them. They didn't know why he helped them. Although it was wrong to hit people, he directly threw them out when they were only halfway through their words. Such an action would make them think that the forest clinic was extremely rude. You are... Medicine Master Nanxing couldn't help but frown when he saw the newcomer. Nanxing looked at the young and confident Li Zongjio in front of him. This pair of eyes seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. They had a calm expression that belonged to him. However, in Li Zongjio's eyes, Nanxing could still see a trace of panic. Although it was well hidden by Li Zongjio, why would he panic? Moreover, in Medicine Master Nanxing's eyes, the young man in front of him gave him a familiar feeling. This caused Medicine Master Nanxing to be extremely surprised. Because at his level, there was almost no one who could gain his favor. How could this be possible? How could such a person appear in such a small place? Medicine Master Nanxing couldn't help but feel a trace of interest towards Li Zongjio. He curiously sized up the young man in front of him. Just what secrets do you have? My name is Li Zongjio. I come from Luoxia City. Luoxia City? I've never heard of it. Nanxing frowned slightly, then gently shook his head. The name Li Zongjio was even more unfamiliar to him. For Nanxing, with a single glance, she could tell that this was the first time Li Zongjio had come to her clinic. You will hear about it in the future. But right now, I want to ask you to save someone. Li Zongjio said. His heart, which had been stagnant for 3,000 years, finally began to tremble again. My clinic has already become a black clinic. You still dare to ask me to save someone? The 9 revolving universe needle technique is unparalleled in the world. Li Zongjio said. At this moment, medicine master Nansheng, who originally had a calm expression, widened his eyes in shock. The 9 revolving universe needle technique. This was an acupuncture technique passed down from ancient times. It was also the acupuncture technique that medicine master Nansheng was currently learning. However, only Nansheng himself knew about this. He had never even told his family members. How did Li Zongjio know about it? Therefore, Nansheng's heart was filled with shock as he looked at Li Zongjio. Who are you? I can help you find the lower half of the 9 revolving universe needle technique, but you have to help me save someone. Li Zongjio said. His face was filled with confidence. Logically speaking, Li Zongjio might be lying. However, Nansheng could see the confidence and pride in Li Zongjio's eyes. It seemed that there was no need for him to lie about this kind of thing. You really can find the lower half? Why should I believe you? Nansheng looked into Li Zongjio's eyes and said. The surrounding onlookers were also dumbfounded by what they saw. What was going on? Weren't they just talking about curing someone to death? Why were they talking about a deal now? What was wrong with this young man? Why did he suddenly cut the queue? Li Zongjio did not answer. The onlookers behind them were violently pushed aside by a group of people. Then a large group of people rushed in. You want to attack me? Smash it. Today, I'm going to burn down this medical center. None of the people here can leave. The person who gave the order was the man who was thrown out by Li Zongjio. Chapter 169. It was obvious that the other party had come prepared. They had brought so many people and were lying in ambush. It seemed that if they did not fork out so much money today, there would be no way to settle this peacefully. Nansheng was unmoved, as if he did not care at all. As for Li Zongjio, he took a step back and turned around. He rushed towards the black-clothed man. Cripple this brat first. The leader of the black-clothed man actually took out a dagger and directly stabbed it towards Li Zongjio. The rest of the people also held metal rods in their hands. Some of them smashed towards the windows, while others smashed towards the tables and chairs. However, the majority of them directly smashed towards Li Zongjio. These people's movements were clearly very practiced. They rushed in without any nonsense. Their movements were fast, but Li Zongjio's movements were even faster. His figure moved forward. The yuan power in his body was like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain. Facing the black-clothed man's dagger, he flicked his finger and directly shattered the dagger. The flying blade also streaked across the top of the black-clothed man's head. Swoosh! A strand of hair on the top of the black-clothed man's head was directly shaved off, leaving a gap. Moreover, a trace of blood flowed down. It was obvious that this was a cut on the man's head. Restrain! Li Zongjio's mental energy spread out. With a bang, everyone was under his control. The metal rods that were about to fall to the ground were also suspended in the air. Some people used all their strength to smash the metal rods in their hands down. However, they realized that they could not move at all. Smash! Li Zongjio waved his hand. Immediately, these people smashed the metal rods towards their own heads with a bang. They smashed it down mercilessly. Ah! Bang! Most of the people were directly smashed into the ground and fainted. Their bodies went limp and fell to the ground. The group of people who were so aggressive just a moment ago was instantly turned into a pile of mud lying on the ground. The appearance of this scene caused the surrounding mercenaries to be shocked. This was indeed somewhat inconceivable. However, it also proved Li Zongjio's strength. Many people who saw this scene were also shocked. This is spiritual power. He's a spirit master. Someone exclaimed. This Li Zongjio stood in the same place, motionless, but he was able to put so many people on the ground at the same time. If it was not spiritual power, then what could it be? Being able to know the existence of a spirit master meant that they were more experienced. Therefore, they were able to call out the name of a spirit master. They had been through a lot and had seen some real masters. The existence of a spirit master was quite a terrifying level. With just a thought, he could kill someone from 100 meters away without spilling any blood. If such a person were to carry out assassinations, the assassin's eyes would be filled with fear for the rest of his life. All right, I believe you. Nansheng shrugged helplessly. Then he said to the person beside him, "Bring me my medicine box. I want to see a patient." Yes, Mississippi. The person immediately went into the inner room and took out Nansheng's medicine box. This decision was straightforward. Li Zongjio sighed in relief. If Nansheng was not willing to help, then he really had no other choice. After all, Shen Nanxiao was poisoned by a gu. In this aspect, his research was still relatively lacking. Moreover, if he wanted to go to the Nanjiang tribe and capture a tribe elder, who knows how much time it would take. The most direct and effective method was to have Nansheng take action. Although Nansheng was like a turtle hiding in a small corner, his reputation was very low. Only within 100 miles could he be considered a little famous. Any further and he would not have any reputation. However, Li Zongjio knew that Nansheng's medical skills were unparalleled. Although he was not at the peak, after learning the first half of the Universe 9 revolving acupuncture technique, he could already be the #1 pharmacist in the Shengyan dynasty. However, Nansheng did not care about it. Furthermore, Nansheng's goal was to quietly study this acupuncture technique. Nansheng looked simple. He was just a pharmacist who was doing good deeds here. However, in reality, Nansheng's identity was not simple. In his previous life, Li Zongjio was already a supreme being. That was why he was able to peek into this corner of the Nansheng family. He came from the famous medicine god family of this continent. However, Li Zongjio was not to be trifled with at that time. Everyone respected each other and was on equal footing. In the few days that I'm not here, you guys take care of this clinic and throw these people out. Nansheng turned around and said. Just as they were about to leave, the black-clothed man climbed up from the ground. In the chaos just now, he was kicked by Li Zongjio and fainted. "You're the one who knocked me down." Nansheng stretched out his hand, his jade-white hand. With a light flick of his hand, a faint ray of light disappeared and landed on the black-clothed man's body. Then, the black-clothed man clutched his head and fell to the ground. "You dare to ruin my reputation. If you want money, just say it. This needle of pain will cause you to have a headache every day for a month. Consider it a punishment. Carry your brother's body back." After Nansheng finished speaking, he slung his bag over his shoulder and walked out with Li Zongjio. As a pharmacist, Nansheng's job was to save people. However, when it came to killing people, he was no weaker than anyone present. After all, Nansheng only looked like he did not have the strength to truss up a chicken. When the two of them left the clinic, they could vaguely hear a painful cry behind them. Then all these people were thrown out. Later on, those who were more knowledgeable were able to tell with a single glance that this black-clothed man had clearly plotted to poison his own younger brother and then pushed the blame onto medicine master Nansheng. Such a despicable method was indeed despicable. After this, the black-clothed man could forget about living a good life in this area. The people who had stood on the black-clothed man's side felt extremely ashamed. No matter what, alchemist Nansheng had at least cured their illnesses. Now they were suspecting her instead. They were simply ungrateful. Although they liked money, they cared more about their reputation. It's all because of that damned beast who bewitched us. Let's go and cripple him. That's right. Watch how I kill that brat today. This Blackwater Road was going to be lively again. I'll go and buy a horse. Li Zongjio said. He had come in a hurry and had basically rushed over by himself along the way. Therefore, they did not use a horse. However, now that Nansheng was accompanying them, they had to go together. Therefore they had to buy a horse. A carriage would not do either. The carriage was too slow. "No need. I have a mount," Nansheng said as he took out an eggshell-like object. If he remembered correctly, this thing was called an sun. When Nansheng gently blew on it, the sound was not loud. However, one could feel that this sound could travel very far. Boom! A shadow suddenly swept across the sky and covered the two of them. Li Zongjio raised his head and saw a large fiery red bird appear in front of him. After circling once, it landed steadily on the ground. Crash! Dust filled the air. Chapter 171. The bird lowered its wings, and Nansheng stepped on its feathers and climbed up. "Come up. It's my friend. Don't be afraid," Nansheng said. At the same time, he wiped off his sweat. It was obvious that climbing up was a bit strenuous. Li Zongjio stared blankly at the red firebird in front of him. Was this the appearance of the bird when it was young? Wasn't this that despicable fellow? So this was what it looked like when it was young. What was the meaning of the 3 strands of hair on its head? It actually looked so adorable. However, it was surprising. To outsiders, this red bird with a handsome face and a murderous aura was just a relatively large bird. However, Li Zongjio knew that this bird was called the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow. It possessed the bloodline of a sacred beast. The legendary 9 Flames Sacred Sparrow was this fellow's ancestor. Because of its extraordinary bloodline, this bird was also very arrogant. The sharp claws under its wings had captured countless ferocious beasts. And this was still a young form. When Li Zongjio first encountered this 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow. When the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow spread its wings, it was already more than 300 feet long. Its mouth spat out raging flames like the setting sun. Its feet shattered the earth. With a flap of its wings, it was 10,000 meters high. He didn't expect it to have a strand of hair on its head when it was young. This kind of feeling was indeed very strange. The 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow couldn't help but turn around and look at Li Zongjio. Why wasn't this kid coming up? Its sharp gaze also made Li Zongjio come back to his senses. He immediately jumped up and landed on the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow. "You can show little 9 the way," Nansheng said. Then, he sat down cross-legged and placed the medicine box beside him. The feathers of the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow had become the best shield. When it landed beside him, it could help stabilize Nansheng. Of course, when the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow flew, it would form a stream of air to maintain its stability. Otherwise, Nansheng, who didn't have any cultivation, would be easily blown away. "Over here." Li Zongjio pointed in the direction of Guanxi town. The 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow flapped its wings. With a rumble, it soared into the sky and soared into the sky. Li Zongjio, who was standing behind the 9 Flame Sky Sparrow, was even faster than the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. However, the 9 Flame Sky Sparrow was at most a level 2 Yuan beast. The Holy Sparrow's bloodline hasn't awakened yet. This guy probably doesn't even know about it, so his IQ isn't too high. Li Zongjio thought. Once the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow was awakened, it would undergo a change. At that time, the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow would no longer be an ordinary cloud beast, but a sacred beast. Not only could it increase its strength, but it could also increase its intelligence and form its own unique personality. Along the way, Nansheng also didn't ask what kind of illness it was. This was because Nansheng was confident that no matter what illness it was, it would not be a problem in his hands. Therefore, there was no need for him to waste his breath. Li Zongjio was also clear about this, so he didn't say much. The 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow's speed was indeed fast. In just half a day, it had already reached the sky above Guanxi town. Until today, it was already the 4th day. Such a thing had happened in Guanxi town. The appearance of the southern border Gu masters had to be reported to the imperial court. However, Shen Nanxiao was still unconscious and there was nothing they could do about it. Those who died from the soul-devouring parasite had already been cremated. No one could do anything about such a disastrous thing. They could only blame themselves for being unlucky. What are these? Nansheng saw many bonfires below. These people seemed to be burning something. The scale was a little too big. There were at least 600 or 700 piles of flames burning continuously outside Guanxi town. They were poisoned by the soul-devouring goo. Their corpses are being cremated. Li Zongjio stood on the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow and looked at the hundreds of bonfires burning below. His heart was calm. He was neither happy nor sad. If Li Zongjio didn't do anything, Guanxi town would become a dead city. He had already done his best. This world was not peaceful to begin with. Maybe it was because it had been peaceful for too long and there would always be some storms. Or maybe some immortals were fighting, causing these mortals to suffer. All kinds of situations were enough to cause you to lose your life at any time in this peaceful world. The only way was to increase one's strength. So many. Nansheng's eyes were also filled with shock. She had seen dead people, but not so many. You said they were poisoned by goo? The southern border goo? Nansheng said. That's right. You don't look like someone from a small town. Nansheng sized up Li Zongjio. This Li Zongjio had a unique temperament. He didn't fit in with the surroundings, as if he was above them. How could someone from a small town know so much? But Nansheng didn't care. Everyone had their own secrets. We're here. Let's go down. The 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow's body suddenly descended. She plunged into the Shen family below. Shen family. It was originally a joyous occasion, but after Shin Nanxiao's incident, the atmosphere became a little gloomy. When the 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow landed, it also alarmed the Shen family. Gu Man was the first to rush out. Young Master Li is back. Li Zongjio and Nansheng both landed. The 9 Flames Heavenly Sparrow strolled to the side of the courtyard, looking for any bugs on the lawn. Soon, Shen Chuanxiao and the others came one after another. Shen Xinxiao, who had been taking care of Shen Nanxiao in the house, also walked out excitedly. Zongjio is back. Seeing Li Zongjio return, everyone seemed to see hope. Shen Nanxiao's condition seemed to be very bad. Just today alone, he had already vomited a few mouthfuls of blood. Even the needle that Li Zongjio inserted was almost shaken out. It was obvious that the situation was getting worse. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to last until the 7th day. Fortunately, Li Zongjio came back in time. However, Shen Xinxiao looked at Nansheng in front of him. Although Nansheng's body had the fragrance of herbs, and there was a box on his waist, he was like a doctor who came to see a patient. However, he was a little too young. Could it be that Li Zongjio knew a little alchemist somewhere? Such a serious situation, how could he casually teach such a little girl? It wasn't that he didn't believe in Li Zongjio, but this Nansheng was really too young. The surrounding people also expressed their suspicions, but they were still well-mannered and still greeted him with a smile. Mother, this is Alchemist Nansheng. Li Zongjio introduced. Alchemist Nansheng is really young, Shen Xinxiao said with a smile. Since it was his son's choice and recommendation, then there must be something special about it. Shen Yi was also by Shen Xinxiao's side. At first, she was scared out of her wits. But later, when she found out that her father was seriously ill, this pure and innocent girl also panicked and was extremely worried. Every time Shen Nanxiao vomited blood, he would cry. As for Shen Yi's mother, these days, her body was also exhausted. Please, Li Zongjio said. Nansheng also smiled slightly and nodded to the surrounding people. Then he walked in alone. Li Zongjio helped Nansheng close the door. This guy, how does he know my habits? Nansheng wanted to remind him that when she was performing acupuncture, she didn't like people to disturb her, so she didn't allow people to watch. Although Li Zongjio had heard of her reputation, he might not know about this habit. He seemed to be very familiar with it. This made Nansheng mutter in his heart. Chapter 172. Outside Luoxia City. There were countless wolf corpses on the ground outside the city wall. Similarly, there were also many corpses of the city guards. City Lord Yi Chao stood at the city gate and stared at the tragic situation below. It was already dark, but it would not be long before dawn. The enemy might attack here. From the beginning to the end, the other party did not show his face. Only the wild beasts that surged out from the dark Yuan forest were charging and tearing at each other. If these wild beasts were to attack the city, it would definitely endanger the people. Although this matter is directed at the Li family, my Luoxia city is not a place that can be bullied. Yi Chao said slowly. The one standing beside him was Gu Xuanwu, who was in charge of guarding the Li family. Now, the Li family's business had become the mainstay of Luoxia city. The taxes they paid every month were enough to cover the expenses of the city guards. Moreover, the Li family was never stingy when it came to taxes. This made Yi Chao feel good. The enemy obviously wanted to create a scene of wild beasts attacking the city. After all, it was a big crime to attack the city openly. This was a rebellion. Even if you had 10,000 reasons, it was still a rebellion. Although the Luoxia city was located in a remote area, it was still the territory of the Luoxia dynasty. If they directly attacked, the Luoxia dynasty would definitely pursue the matter to the end. Therefore, the enemy chose to let the wild beasts attack. At this moment, there was a huge hole with a diameter of about 10 meters on the city wall of Luoxia city. The city wall almost collapsed. This was caused by a meta beast that was hiding among the wild beasts and suddenly released a terrifying power. From a distance of a few hundred meters, he actually threw a huge rock directly over. In the end, it smashed into the city wall with a loud bang. Many archers on the city wall were also directly knocked back. The meta beast did not attack many times. It quickly slipped away, not giving Yi Chao a chance. If the meta beast dared to continue approaching, Yi Chao and Gu Xuanwu would join forces to kill the meta beast first. Then, the wild beasts would not be a threat. With Yi Chao here, the Li family was slightly better. Otherwise, if Yi Chao directly handed them over, the Li family would be destroyed. The Li family would definitely be destroyed, and Luoxia city's economy would probably decline very quickly. The Northern Medicine Alliance actually dared to send people to massacre the city. Elder Li Jiyan's heart was filled with rage. When he saw the tragic scene of this morning's massacre, he was extremely shocked as well. Fortunately, they were prepared and had received the news in advance. Otherwise, their losses would have been even more disastrous. Why wouldn't I dare? These people think that my Sunset City is merely a mediocre city, yet they act so wantonly. Looks like I have to let them know who is in charge of Sunset City now. Yi Chao snorted coldly. However, in the next moment, a sharp and high-pitched voice suddenly rang out in the sky. The night was pitch black, but with Yi Chao and the rest's eyesight, they could see a huge black bird in the distant sky. It was circling in the sky and was rapidly flying forward. Boom! This whistling sound even caused the people in the city to feel extremely uncomfortable. Many people directly covered their ears and fainted. In the Li family's courtyard in the city, a similar whistling sound swept out and a surge of aura shot up to the sky. The wings of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle seemed to be flashing with lightning. Its figure appeared in the sky and released the aura of a king. The huge black bird's previous cry was to provoke the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Although the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's spiritual intelligence was not low, Li Zongjio was not here, and Li Tianqing was also not here. No one could directly command the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Although the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's primary mission was to protect the Li family's safety, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was now being provoked. But now that he had been provoked, it was even more unbearable. Even a person who had been provoked could very well go berserk. Not to mention the meta beast. Without saying a word, it rushed into the sky. When it was a few hundred meters away, it directly released a bolt of lightning from its body and directly blasted out. Boom! It was like a furious thunderbolt from the sky. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's move was even more ferocious. It made people shudder when they saw it from afar. If they were struck, they would only end up being turned into ashes. Not good. Their target is the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Gu Xuanwu's eyes immediately widened. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was the Li family's ultimate weapon. Since the other party had a beast tamer, they might have subdued the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. At that time, they would bring the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle to attack the Luoxia city, and the people of the Luoxia city would be one step closer to death. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle whistled out and left the Luoxia city behind in the blink of an eye. The huge black bird seemed to be purposely luring the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle away. It did not directly confront the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the night sky with the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. In the Li family's courtyard, Wang Jing raised his head and glanced at the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle in the sky. Sigh, a meta beast is a meta beast. It's over now. Thinking of this, Wang Jing repacked his luggage and carried it on his back. He turned around and walked towards the back door of the courtyard. Although the atmosphere in the Li family was quite good, and these people gave Wang Jing the respect he deserved, he was still half invited and half kidnapped by Li Zhongjiu. Now that the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle had suddenly left, Wang Jing also had a chance to leave this place. Wang Jing, you want to escape? Just as Wang Jing was about to leave, a surprised voice rang out, causing Wang Jing to involuntarily stop in his tracks. Behind him, Li Yun stared at the person in front of her with her limpid eyes. Although Wang Jing was reluctant to leave, he knew that the Li family had suffered a great disaster. The people of the Li family need to stay, but I don't need to. I'm not a member of the Li family. Ahem, Li Yun, it's not that I want to escape. I'm just telling you the truth. Your Li family is about to fall. Why don't you escape with me? I know a path that's absolutely safe. Wang Jing frowned and said, I, Li Yun, am a member of the Li family. If I die, I'll be a ghost of the Li family. Even if the sky falls and the earth rends, or if there's a flash flood or a tsunami, I, Li Yun, will never leave. After Li Yun finished speaking, she glared at Wang Jing. Wang Jing, I'm very disappointed in you. Then, Li Yun also turned and left. Wang Jing stood in place, stunned for a moment. Then he shrugged helplessly. She spoke with a strong sense of righteousness, but when death really came, she only knew how to cry. Looks like they're about to attack. I'd better leave quickly. As he spoke, Wang Jing picked up his bag and took advantage of the darkness of the night to make his way through the small path. Unlike Li Yun and the others, Wang Jing had wandered the world. He had escaped from all kinds of desperate situations and barely managed to survive. Now, his life was more important than money. There was no need to panic. Wang Jing had already figured out what kind of geographical advantage this Luoxia city had. Chapter 173. On top of a wall. Wang Jing threw the bag out and climbed up with great difficulty. Standing on the wall, he looked back at the direction of the Li family. Although it was not long, it was a place where Wang Jing felt warmth. At least, Wang Jing gradually let down his guard here. Boom! A huge impact had appeared on the city wall in front of them. A 10-meter-tall berserk gorilla rushed to the front of Luoxia city. It tore the wall in front of it like a piece of paper. It tore a hole in the wall. Tens of thousands of beasts rushed toward Luoxia city like a flood. Fuck, we're fucking done for. Wang Jing immediately jumped out without hesitation, and then quickly headed towards the route that he had set before. 5 miles to the east, there was a small river. Wang Jing had already prepared a small wooden raft and hid it nearby. He was ready to sail down the river and leave Luoxia city at any time. Roar! The terrifying roar that came from the Luoxia city behind him made Wang Jing quicken his pace. He didn't stop. On top of the city wall, Gu Xuanwu had already rushed down and fought with the berserk gorilla. Yi Chao was still observing the situation. His soldiers were also trying their best to resist. Yi Chao was also rubbing his hands. After the berserk gorilla and the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle were lured out, they would definitely attack and distract the people in the city. Therefore, Yi Chao had to stop these beasts. City Lord, I received a letter. As long as we hand over the Li family, the Northern Medicine Alliance will let bygones be bygones. Just when Yi Chao was about to attack, a voice came from beside him. It was the #1 strategist of Yi Chao, Ying Lai. While speaking, Ying Lai lowered his head and looked very humble. However, under such circumstances, Ying Lai felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. After all, what he said was like a slap to Yi Chao's face. Although it was important to stay alive. I think you don't want to live anymore. Does the Northern Medicine Alliance want to be above Luoxia city? Yi Chao said coldly. After today, get out of Luoxia city. Ying Lai bowed even lower. It was obvious that Yi Chao had the intention to kill him. But for the sake of their old friendship, Yi Chao did not make a move. When Yi Chao jumped down from the city wall, Yi Chao was shocked. His Yuan General Realm aura was instantly released. Boom! It was as if King Kong had landed on the ground. The sword in his hand instantly killed all the wild beasts around him. The sword chi seemed to have the power to break bamboo. Crash! They easily cleaned up the surrounding wild beasts. Broken limbs and blood splattered everywhere. The defense of the soldiers in the city was also damaged. However, only a small portion of the city guards were attacked. Most of the wild beasts headed straight for the Li family. No one would believe that there was no one controlling these beasts behind the scenes. Not good. Li Juyen immediately grew worried. However, Li Juyen's own situation was not good either. Many ferocious beasts were swarming towards the city walls, and some of the Li family guards were also charging out. The scene reeked of blood. The Li family. Although Li Yan was young, when most of the elders were sent out, her status as an alchemy elder was considered higher in front of the group of disciples. Quick, everyone hide in the basement. Li Baichao. Quickly bring some people and block the door. Sprinkle the rosemary orchid at the door. The effect of the rosemary orchid should be enough to slow them down. The rosemary orchid was one of the main ingredients used to concoct knockout drugs. If one breathed in too much, it was very likely that one would fall into a coma. Now that they were dealing with these wild beasts, they were not helpless. Moreover, they were not running for their lives in a panic. Instead, they were united and calmly dealt with the situation. Roger. As the eldest disciple of the alchemy hall, Li Baicao's alchemy skills had improved a lot these days. Now that he was facing a crisis, he did not panic at all. He immediately brought the other 3 alchemy hall disciples to the door. He used a wooden stake to seal the door. At the same time, he sprinkled the rosemary orchid powder around it. When Li Baichao and the others returned to Li Yun's side, Li Yun had already sealed the door of the basement. There was enough food and water below, enough for the people to survive for 10 days to half a month. Where's Elder Wang Jing? Why don't I see him? Li Baichao suddenly remembered that this little fatty, who seemed to only know how to brag but was actually hiding his strength, was an elder that their young master had invited. At this time they had to take care of him. They couldn't let him die outside like this. He escaped long ago. Li Yun coldly snorted and said, "We are the last line of defense. We must block the attack of these wild beasts. Otherwise, our Li family will be finished. We must hold on until reinforcements arrive." Do you have reinforcements? Li Baichao could not help but ask. From the looks of it, there was indeed no one who could save them. The attack was too sudden. Should they ask the Fog Snow Alchemy sect for help? It would take 3 to 4 days to go there and back. By the time they returned, their Li family would have been in ruins. Before disaster struck, they must strengthen themselves. Everyone's morale was low. Li Yun wanted to cheer them up, but soon she felt the violent tremors coming from the ground. Rumble. The heavy sound was like 10,000 horses galloping. It was as if a moving mountain was pressing down on the Li family at a high speed. Boom. The Li family's door and walls were instantly blasted apart. The first to charge in. It was actually a meta beast. Level 2 meta beast, water deer and hunting tiger. The water deer and hunting tiger's body was small and looked like a hunting dog. However, the explosive force between the tiger's claws could easily tear a person in half without any delay. Moreover, the water deer and hunting tiger's reaction was extremely fast and agile. In this forest, it was simply a natural killer. A level 2 meta beast was equivalent to a Master Realm expert. The number of Master Realm experts in their Li family was pitifully small. Where could they find a Master Realm expert to fight against this water deer and hunting tiger? Some of the wild beasts that came in through the door directly inhaled the rosemary orchid and fell to the ground with a plop after taking 2 steps. However, more wild beasts stepped on the wild beasts in front and pounced in. They had received the order to kill everyone in the Li family. The water deer and hunting tiger roared and suddenly pounced towards Li Yun. The aura of death enveloped Li Yun, but Li Yun did not retreat. She held the sword in her hand tightly. Her legs could not help but tremble. She stood on the spot, unable to move. As men, Li Baichao and the other 3 naturally rushed out. They also participated in their usual morning exercises, so they more or less had some self-defense skills. However, in front of the water deer and hunting tiger, it was not worth mentioning. Bang, bang. With a light slap of its claws, The four were directly sent flying. They vomited blood and fell to the ground unconscious. Go to hell. Li Yun held the sword with both hands and slashed towards the head of the water deer and hunting tiger. However, the water deer and hunting tiger's reaction speed was much faster than Li Yun's. It directly bit horizontally towards Li Yun's waist. Li Yun originally wanted to fight to the death. However, when the sword hit the head of the water deer and hunting tiger, a trace of blood spurted out. Li Yun was shocked. I seem to be fine? Wait, why is this water deer and hunting tiger lying on the ground? I told you to leave long ago. You didn't listen. A familiar voice sounded. Then, the water deer and hunting tiger on the ground was suddenly lifted up. Alchemy flame. Boom. This was the first time Li Yun saw Wang Jing make a move. Wang Jing usually looked like a flippant person, but when he made his move, everyone was taken aback. The water deer and hunting tiger was surrounded by flames. They struggled painfully in the flames, but soon they were burned into a pile of ashes. Wang Jing did not have time to care about Li Yun. He turned around and looked at the group of beasts behind him. It's time to let you see Master Jing's anger. Alchemy flame. Boom. The raging flames bloomed and directly turned into a ferocious beast, killing the beasts in front of him. In an instant, a sea of fire spread out. Chapter 174. Li Baichao and the others, who were seriously injured, saw Wang Jing. At this moment, they finally understood why the young master seemed to have spent a lot of effort to keep Wang Jing here. Such a person, no matter where he was, could become a top figure. It would be difficult for them to catch up with such a person in terms of strength. It was really terrifying. With such strength, Wang Jing was willing to stay in Luoxia City. The most important thing was that Wang Jing didn't want to expose his strength too much. Usually he was quite low-key. It even made people think that Wang Jing, apart from being good at alchemy, was simply a lazy person. When it came to eating, Wang Jing was indeed the best at it. Today, he had one more attribute, which was being greedy for life and afraid of death. They did not expect him to escape directly. But now, he suddenly came back to save their lives and showed his strength. This made Li Baichao and the others even more surprised and admired him. On the other hand, Wang Jing was indeed not a member of the Li family. There was no need for him to stay and risk his life. However, Wang Jing himself had already escaped from danger, and now he had come back, which was even more admirable. Thank you. Li Yun glanced at Wang Jing, who was showing his strength. She was even a little stunned. At this time, Wang Jing was also very regretful. After revealing his strength, he really could not continue to stay here. Otherwise, trouble would soon come knocking on his door. At that time, he would not be the one to save the Li family. Instead, he would really plunge the Li family into fire and water. The number of people that Wang Jing had offended was innumerable. Almost every corner of the world had people that Wang Jing had offended. Therefore, every time he escaped, he was extra careful and had a good plan. Hide behind me, Wang Jing growled. Between his palms, a fire cauldron appeared. Boom! Flames burned. Outside the city, Li Gui and the others felt as if a sharp sword was stabbing their hearts. The formation of the wild beasts was directly broken and they joined the battle. Gu Xuanwu saw Li Gui and the others come back and was also happy. Quick, the Li family is under attack. Kill! Hearing this, Li Gui immediately urged his horse and charged towards the direction of the Li family. They had rushed all the way here and were only able to continue fighting because they were relying on their last breaths. If they couldn't win this battle, then it would have been a waste for them to rush back. As he fought, he allowed the blood to splash on his body. Li Gui and the others were like barbaric iron-blooded soldiers, slaughtering their way to the Li family. The sky gradually brightened. Amidst the slaughter, a roar came from the forest, and the wild beasts retreated like the tide. Yi Chao and the others were in the middle of the beast horde. Seeing these beasts retreating quickly. However, the berserk gorilla that split open the city gate didn't manage to leave. His heart was crushed by Gu Xuanwu. To be able to fight so valiantly at such an old age was indeed an eye-opener. This high-spirited spirit was nowhere to be seen in the past. In the end, the berserk gorilla's head was chopped off by Gu Xuanwu. Not even Gu Xuanwu had expected this. One had to realize that even their Xuanwu army squad would have to expend a great deal of effort to capture a level 3 or 4 origin beast, and they would even have to pay a certain price to capture one. However, decades had passed, and his body had been abandoned for such a long time. When he used it again, it was still as ferocious as before. In fact, it even felt like the more he fought, the stronger he became. The power of the scarlet fire took root and sprouted in Gu Xuanwu's body. The bones in his body seemed to have become stronger. However, this strength could only be shown in a battle like this. Refreshing. Yi Chao landed beside Gu Xuanwu and stared at his old buddy in astonishment. Gu Xuanwu was already so old and had one foot in the coffin. Yet, he was still able to possess such powerful combat strength. It was indeed an eye-opener for Yi Chao. Not bad. To think that you're still at this level. Gu Xuanwu glanced in Yi Chao's direction. Behind Yi Chao lay a large number of corpses. At a glance, there were at least 400 to 500 corpses. To be able to create such a great battle record by himself with a single sword was indeed impressive. There was even some shock and disbelief. You're not bad yourself. Blue-tide sword? The sword doesn't need to be released. Gu Xuanwu exclaimed. Yi Chao's eyes flashed at Gu Xuanwu's words. There weren't many people who could recognize this sword. Back then, Yi Chao's clan had clashed with the Xuanwu army many times. If Gu Xuanwu could recognize it, then he must have known of Yi Chao's identity. Yi Chao's clan had recruited Yi Chao through a form of recruitment. After all, the blue-tide sword grew and multiplied endlessly. It wasn't so easy to block. If it was cultivated to the peak, it would be able to destroy a city with a single wave. I haven't moved for a long time. Do these people really think that I'm old? Yi Chao coldly snorted. To think that they dared to do such a thing. To think that they didn't put Luoxia City in their eyes. Although Luoxia City wasn't ranked, it wasn't a place that could be trampled on by some trash alchemist alliance. With their level, they weren't able to disregard Yi Chao. In the depths of the mountain forest, a large bird with golden wings was trapped in the forest. Its surroundings were filled with thorny vines, trapping the large bird. Even the slightest struggle would bring about an intense pain. It was the Li clan's golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. In front of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was an old man in gray robes. He held a wooden cane in his hand. The cane was engraved with several beast patterns. There was also a token hanging on his robes. The word beast was written on it, and the symbol of a mountain peak was carved on the back. Thousand Beasts Sect. It wasn't a weak sect. Although there weren't many people in the Thousand Beasts sect, no one dared to look down on them in Dingquan province. Even the mountain gate of the Thousand Beasts sect had become a forbidden area for ordinary cultivators. In Dingquan province, the strength of the Thousand Beasts sect was similar to that of the Zheng clan. Among the second-grade sects, it was considered a top existence. The Fog Snow Pill sect was located in a corner. It was at most a third-grade sect. It was considered a third-grade sect in the Xingyan dynasty. These sects needed to be certified and registered by the dynasty before they could become a sect. Only after they obtained a photo could they establish a sect and recruit disciples. This old man was just an outer sect deacon of the Thousand Beasts sect. Now that he heard that there was actually a subdued level 3 meta beast in this small Luoxia city, he naturally rushed over in a hurry. He was at the same level as a spirit master and a master. This old man was a third-grade beast tamer. He was able to control a general-level meta beast. He wasn't much in the Thousand Beasts sect, but in a place like Luoxia City, he was a godlike existence. Otherwise, why would he dare to summon so many meta beasts to attack the city? It really is a golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, a peak third-grade meta beast. I didn't expect that there would be such a good thing waiting for me. Come into my arms. With my ability, it's not impossible for you to become a fourth-grade meta beast. Once you become a fourth-grade meta beast, you will gain intelligence. Do you want to be a little bird that listens to orders forever? We have a cooperative relationship. I am your friend, you don't have to be afraid. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle kept struggling. In the old man's view, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle didn't have any imprints on its body. It should have been domesticated since it was young. Therefore, taming this kind of meta-beast was even easier. Since you don't want to surrender yourself, don't blame me. I am doing this for your own good. You must believe me. As he spoke, the old man took out a long black needle. On the needle, one could see a taboo power surging within. This was the Soul Breaker Needle. It was a weapon refined by the Thousand Beasts sect using hundreds of beast souls and blood essences. If it pierced into the meta-beast's body, the beast soul within the needle would erupt and tear the meta-beast's soul to pieces. It was like being haunted by a malicious spirit. It would cause great harm to the meta-beast's mind and soul. Just as the old man was about to make his move, he suddenly frowned. He looked in the direction of Luoxia City. You actually killed my ferocious blood ape. Luoxia City, how dare you make an enemy out of me, Su Feng? I already gave you a chance, but you didn't want it. Su Feng's eyes flashed with a cold light. He directly pierced the Soul Breaker Needle into the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's head. Beep! One could hear the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's painful cry that spread thousands of miles away. Chapter 175. 10,000 meters up in the sky. A huge grayish-brown bird spread its wings. Oh no, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle is in danger. Li Zongjio suddenly opened his eyes. There was a flash of anger in his eyes. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was tamed by Li Zongjio. Now that it was being attacked by someone else, it was a provocation to Li Zongjio. Through the mental strength link, Li Zongjio could clearly feel the pain coming from the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Full speed ahead. This huge brown bird was called the gray cloud eagle. It was relatively common among the level 2 meta beasts. It was only at the master level. Naturally, it was no match for Li Zongjio. After being tamed, it immediately rushed over. It was not far from the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. The gray cloud eagle flapped its wings and flew. The speed that it had displayed along the way was the maximum potential of its body. Almost there. Just as Li Zongjio was about to land. Suddenly he heard a few whistling sounds behind him. Li Zongjio was alerted by the sharp air blades that pierced through the air. The gray cloud eagle was hit by a blade and a few feathers were blown off. At the same time, fresh blood flew from the sky. The gray cloud eagle screamed in pain. Obviously, the attack just now had seriously injured the gray cloud eagle. At the same time, the gray cloud eagle's body was descending rapidly. At the same time, Li Zongjio also saw the person who attacked him in the process of descending. It was a huge black bird. If he was not mistaken, this huge bird should be a level 3 meta beast, black wind hunting eagle. A meta beast with the wind attribute. It was extremely fast and could control the surrounding wind to form a terrifyingly sharp wind blade. It could easily cut the enemy in half. At the same time, the black wind hunting eagle had a ferocious nature. What it was best at was using wind blades to cut countless wounds on the enemy's body. Then, it would drain the blood and finally devour the flesh of the prey. Another gust of wind blades came, as if it was raining blades and swords. Crush! Break! Li Zongjio extended his hand, and a stream of essence force instantly shattered these wind blades. The black wind falcon chased after him. A pair of sharp claws grabbed towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio leaped into the air. It was very difficult for ordinary people to control their own body in such a high altitude. However, it was a piece of cake for Li Zongjio. With a flip of his body, he landed on the back of the black wind falcon. However, the gray cloud eagle was not so lucky. The black wind falcon's sharp claws pierced through his body and caught him. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. The gray cloud eagle was like a piece of tofu. It was directly torn into two halves, and its innards rained down from the sky. The gray cloud eagle was directly torn into two halves. Although it was a level 2 meta beast, it did not even have the slightest bit of resistance in front of a level 3 meta beast. However, Li Zongjio had already landed on the black wind falcon's body. Die! The 6-revolution steel blade in his hand stabbed down. At the same time, he used his own essence force. Otherwise, it would be difficult to split the Black-Winged Falcon apart with just the power of the blade. The Black-Winged Falcon's defense was not weak either, although the blade had pierced through. But for the Black-Winged Falcon, it wasn't a serious injury. Beep! However, it had completely angered the Black-Winged Falcon. Immediately, the Black-Winged Falcon spun wildly. As it spun, it could feel the terrifying blade wind gradually forming around its body. When this gust of wind was formed, Li Zhongjio's body seemed to have sunk into the thousands of slashes of the blade. His skin and flesh were lacerated. Even blood was seeping out from his skin. Boom! You're courting death! Li Zhongjio roared. Then, the wind from his palm surged. The 6-revolution steel blade in his hand instantly slammed into the Black-Winged Falcon's body. Bang! Suddenly, the Black-Winged Falcon's body stopped spinning. It was just inertia that caused it to crash to the side. Li Zhongjio also fell from the sky. He fell. Just as he was about to hit the ground, his essence force exploded. Boom! As he fell, Li Zhongjio's body finally stabilized. Otherwise, the fall just now would have broken a few bones. Li Zhongjio's body rolled a dozen times on the ground. Finally, he hit a tree trunk and came to a stop. This exchange left Li Zhongjio battered and exhausted. Looks like I have to quickly break through to the Yuan general level. Li Zhongjio thought to himself. Only after breaking through to the Yuan general level could Li Zhongjio fly in the air. In the sky, he could more or less stabilize his body and would not fall directly. The Black-Winged Falcon also fell to the ground with a boom. Instantly, the sound of the Black-Winged Falcon's bones breaking could be heard. Li Zhongjio stood up. Without hesitation, he rushed towards the Black-Winged Falcon. He picked up the steel blade on the ground and directly chopped off the Black-Winged Falcon's head. Boom! The Black-Winged Falcon was still in a dizzy state when it was killed by Li Zhongjio's blade. Its ending was quite tragic. As the blood splattered, Li Zhongjio also circulated the Yuan Sutra. The Yuan power in his body instantly refined this large amount of fresh blood into blood pearls. The blood dragon origin spirit seems to be acting strangely. While absorbing the blood and refining it into blood beads, Li Zhongjio found that the blood dragon origin spirit, which had been silent for a long time, was also excited and was absorbing the blood. You're only excited because you're bathing in blood? And the level of the kill must not be low. Li Zhongjio was slightly enlightened. The blood dragon origin spirit was actually so bloodthirsty that it would only react under such bloodthirsty circumstances. In order to obtain the Yuan Sutra hidden in the blood dragon origin spirit, the blood dragon origin spirit had to be awakened. Now, it seemed to be in a half-awake state. The way to awaken the blood dragon origin spirit was to kill. The only way was to persevere in killing. Moreover, the blood dragon origin spirit could only be awakened by killing higher-level creatures or stronger existences. Su Feng, who was torturing the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, suddenly trembled. He seemed to have missed his footing and fell backward. It took him a great deal of effort to stabilize his body. This made Su Feng extremely shocked. What? Someone actually killed my Black-Winged Falcon. Who is it? Su Feng was instantly enraged. He had paid a great price to exchange for the Black-Winged Falcon from others. It was born as a level 3 meta beast. He even had the opportunity to cultivate it to the level 4 meta beast. The Black-Winged Falcon was only in the growth stage and had not reached the mature stage. Compared to humans, it was just a teenager. What kind of person could be so ruthless? How dare you kill my Black-Winged Falcon? I will definitely tear you into pieces. Just as Su Feng was fuming in anger, he saw a figure walking out of the forest in front of him. He was dragging a long steel knife in his hand. The steel knife was extremely sharp. It did not even require any extra movements. It was simply dragged on the ground. It also cut down the trees along the way. The most important thing was, Su Feng sensed an extremely strong smell of blood from this person. Combined with the death of the Black-Winged Falcon, he immediately realized that it was the person in front of him who killed his Black-Winged Falcon. Are you the one who killed my Black-Winged Falcon? I want you to pay for it with your life. Su Feng said coldly. As for who Li Zongjio was, he was not interested in knowing. Anyway, this guy would die sooner or later. In such a remote place, there was no one that he did not dare to kill. He was the Thousand Beasts sect's external deacon. With such an identity, if he came to Luoxia City, the city lord of Luoxia City would have to personally welcome him. After all, his identity was not that simple. To be able to sit in this position, he must have a lot of connections. Li Zongjio did not answer Su Feng. There was no need to talk nonsense with the enemy. How could he be sure that it was the enemy? The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was not far away. It was howling in pain. How could Li Zongjio not see it? There was only one outcome for the enemy: death. Li Zongjio approached. Suddenly, a terrifying murderous aura burst out from his eyes. Boom! The murderous aura enveloped Su Feng. Chapter 176. Even Su Feng couldn't help but shudder. But soon, Su Feng sneered. I thought you were as ferocious as a tiger. You're just a piece of trash at the Yuanshi level. You want to be my enemy? I'll make sure you can't even touch my clothes. If we were in the sect, a piece of trash like you wouldn't even have the right to carry my shoes. Su Feng shouted. The grade 4 prime general aura in his body was released with a loud explosion. His cultivation was even more powerful than the city lord Yi Chao's. Only the elders of Lai Peak and Crimson Afterglow Peak could be compared to him. However, Su Feng's forte wasn't his cultivation, but beast taming. Before becoming a beast taming master, one's own Yuan Li had to pass the test. On top of that, Su Feng was a grade 4 origin general Yuan Li expert. This was the feeling of being infuriated by comparison. If an ordinary person wanted to cultivate to the level of a 4th grade general, they would have to spend a lot of time and effort. How much chance and luck would they have to have, and how much effort would they have to put in order to reach such a level? However, Su Feng's talent was terrifying. Not only was he an expert in Yuan Li, but he was also a beast-taming master who could control thousands of beasts. Li Zongjio didn't say a word. He just stared at Su Feng. The other party's aura was strong. Clearly, Su Feng had never given up on the aspect of elemental energy. However, Li Zongjio had come into contact with beast tamers in his previous life. Once these people became beast tamers, they would try their best to summon elemental beasts to protect themselves. Moreover, after a beast-taming master state appeared, the changes they could feel would be even more varied and terrifying. This was because they could summon Yuan beasts of different attributes to fight for them. To a beast-taming master, a Yuan beast with unique abilities was very valuable. Killing a Yuan beast and obtaining a Yuan crystal was no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs for a beast-taming master. Only by truly controlling the Yuan beast and grasping its abilities would they be able to achieve the desired effect. Therefore, Li Zongjio released his mental strength. Li Zongjio scanned the surroundings to see if there were any powerful existences around. After all, if these Yuan beasts launched a surprise attack, they would definitely pose a threat to Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio wasn't a god, nor did he have the cultivation of the evil lord in his previous life. After his rebirth, he could still be injured and die. If he didn't want the tragedy of his previous life's family to happen again, Li Zongjio had to ensure his safety and kill all these people. Any obstacle that blocked his way must be destroyed. Bai Shenfu. As mental energy spread out, Li Zongjio immediately sensed 2 auras hiding behind him. Previously, Su Feng had released his aura to cover these 2 auras, preventing Li Zongjio from sensing the 2 Yuan beasts hiding behind him. Beast-taming masters rely on these Yuan beasts? The corner of Li Zongjio's mouth curled into a sneer. If that was the case, then they would really run into Li Zongjio's gun. There were 2 Yuan beasts behind him. One of them was only the size of a palm, but it was covered with spikes. It was an offensive weapon. Li Zongjio recognized it quickly. It was a spiked beast that lived in the rainforest. It was good at camouflage and sneak attacks. The other one was a giant bat. Its wings covered its body, completely concealing its presence. It was just hanging upside down on the tree trunk. It was impossible to see the existence of this bat at a glance because its wings were the same color as the tree trunk. Level 3 Yuan Beast, Poison Blood Bat. These 2 Yuan beasts were also level 3 Yuan beasts. In addition, there was the Black Wind Falcon that he killed. This beast-taming master had 3 level 3 Yuan beasts. He was not weak. Now that he had caught the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, he obviously wanted to subdue it. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was poisoned. It should be the poison of the Poison Blood Bat. He used his mental strength to pacify the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. As a peak class 3 demonic beast, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was enraged that it was being controlled in such a manner. It even struggled to break free, but its body was covered with cuts and bruises. Don't worry. I will treat your Yuan beast well. Now go to hell. Su Feng said coldly. After Li Zongjio killed his Black Wind Falcon, Su Feng had already sentenced Li Zongjio to death. With a thought, the Poison Blood Bat on the tree and the spiked beast on the ground attacked instantly. The spiked beast turned into a spiked ball and rushed toward Li Zongjio. It was so fast that it bounced a few times on the ground and changed its direction at will. Then, it stabbed toward Li Zongjio. The Poison Blood Bat flew to the sky above Li Zongjio. It instantly spread its wings and let out a ghostly cry. It spat out a puddle of venom from the sky and landed on Li Zongjio's body. Hidden Dragon Skill. Li Zongjio shouted in a low voice. Then, his figure gradually disappeared from the spot. The spiked beast instantly penetrated Li Zongjio's body and disappeared in front of his eyes. Li Zongjio's body was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had disappeared just like that. The Hidden Dragon skill was a grade 5 Yuan skill. With Li Zongjio's current cultivation level, he should not have been able to use it. However, with Li Zongjio's high level of research and mastery of the Hidden Dragon skill, he was able to achieve a temporary effect. His figure vanished before Su Feng's eyes. He disappeared. What kind of Yuan skill is that? The Poison Blood Bat's venom landed on the ground where Li Zongjio had been standing. It was extremely corrosive. Su Feng was stunned for a moment, but he soon sneered. The Poison Blood Bat had already discovered Li Zongjio's body. You want to run? You can't run away. The Poison Blood Bat's response wave instantly locked onto Li Zongjio, who was running away. Its claws kicked off the tree trunk and it instantly changed direction and chased after Li Zongjio. The spiked beast that was rolling on the ground also hit the tree. It was like a bouncy rubber ball as it chased after Li Zongjio. You want to run away from me? Do you think I'm a piece of trash? Su Feng sneered when he saw the 2 Yuanshi beasts chasing after Yang Kai. If he couldn't even deal with a 7th grade Yuanshi trash, then he wouldn't have the face to continue being the deacon of the 1,000 Beasts sect. You're not a piece of trash. You're just a little stupid. Li Zongjio's voice suddenly rang in Su Feng's ears. Su Feng's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. However, he quickly felt a surge of elemental energy invading his spine. Bang! A cracking sound came from his spine. Su Feng's entire body was in his opponent's hands. The reason why Su Feng cultivated so much Yuan power was so that he could have the ability to protect himself. Bang! Therefore, when Li Zongjio attacked, the Yuan power in his body did not disappear. It was filled with vigilance and formed a layer of defense. However, Li Zongjio had used some unknown technique to break through her defense. She didn't know what technique he had used to break through her defense. At the same time, a terrifying wave of Yuan power entered his body and broke his defense, instantly destroying his body. The lower half of his body was paralyzed. The 2 Yuan beasts ran out to deal with Li Zongjio. However, they realized that it was just an illusion. What they destroyed was only a little bit of Yuan power. The Yuan beasts reacted and roared, wanting to chase after their master to protect him. However, Li Zongjio had already controlled their master. Since you dare to go against the Li family, you're destined to die. Li Zongjio placed the steel blade in his hand on Su Feng's neck. The sharpness of the blade made Su Feng's body tremble uncontrollably. You can't kill me. I am the outer court deacon of the 1,000 Beasts sect. Chapter 177. Su Feng's voice was also trembling. But at this moment, Su Feng was also stalling for time. As long as his metabeasts arrived in time, they would definitely be able to tear Li Zongjio to shreds. He did not know where this Li Zongjio came from. He actually ambushed him with a Yuan Adept level cultivation base. Oh, you are the Thousand Beasts Sect's outer sect deacon? When Li Zongjio heard this name, he could not help but sneer. The Thousand Beasts sect was indeed famous. With the Li family's current state, if they offended the Thousand Beasts sect, they would probably be annihilated. Su Feng felt that Li Zongjio's actions had softened, so he quickly nodded and said, "That's right, I have a token as proof. If you let me go, I will leave immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Feng felt Li Zongjio loosen his grip. The Yuan force in Su Feng's body immediately reconnected his broken bones. As a Yuan Adept level expert, even if his arms or legs were broken, he could still reconnect them temporarily. This was the benefit of having a strong Yuan force. Li Zongjio let go of Su Feng. Su Feng immediately ran forward. His two metabeasts had already arrived. After all, he was still a young man. However, the Thousand Beasts sect was too famous, so no one dared to offend them. "Brat, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too young. Kill him." Li Zongjio coldly looked at Su Feng. He already knew that Su Feng was not a good person. However, as soon as Su Feng finished speaking, he felt as if there was a dark cloud above his head. When he looked up, he saw the poison bloodbat's sharp claws grabbing his head. The venom immediately entered his body, causing Su Feng to feel a trace of a terrifying aura. Was this the feeling of being invaded by the poison bloodbat's venom? So cold, so painful. This was what Su Feng thought. Immediately after, the spike beast instantly flew over. Chi. The moment he opened his body, he directly pierced through Su Feng's body. Those sharp thorns. This caused Su Feng's body to be riddled with holes. Fresh blood flowed out from the wounds, and during this process, the blood gradually turned black. Because of the invasion of the poison bloodbat's venom. Su Feng did not expect this. He was actually going to die under the claws of his own metabeast. Crack! The poison bloodbat bit off Su Feng's head and crushed it in its mouth. Seeing such a miserable end, Li Zongjio remained unmoved. "You guys can go down as well." With a thought from Li Zongjio, the spike beast and the poison bloodbat both fell to the ground with a loud bang. Their mental energy was directly destroyed. As long as it was an enemy, there was no such thing as innocence. What's more, Li Zongjio wouldn't allow any possibility to appear. He wouldn't allow any trouble to be left behind. He had to kill them all to prevent future troubles. He came to the front of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Li Zongjio waved his hand and released his origin energy, cutting the surrounding vines into pieces. He took out the soul-breaking needle. He didn't expect Su Feng to use such an insidious weapon to deal with the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. It seemed that he had let Su Feng die too easily. He put away the soul-breaking needle. It was naturally a very satisfying thing to use such an insidious weapon on an enemy. This detoxification pill can temporarily suppress the poison. Li Zongjio threw out a pill. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle opened its mouth and caught it. It swallowed it directly. Beep! After recovering some of its strength, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was extremely angry. However, the enemies were all dead. If they were still alive, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle would definitely not let them off easily. "Let's go back to the city." Li Zongjio took off Su Feng's waist token and the storage ring on his hand. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle soared into the sky. After breaking free, although the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was severely injured, it was still a peak level 3 origin beast. Its recovery ability was not ordinary and its endurance was also very high. It gritted its teeth and persevered as it brought Li Zongjio back to Luoxia City. Li Zongjio landed on the city wall. At this moment, the battle in the city had already ended. He saw Li Tianqing and the others rushing in from outside the city gate. Although they were a little late, it was fortunate that there was no greater danger. The sky gradually brightened and the morning glow covered the land, blooming a beautiful radiance. It seemed that the smell of blood had also been diluted. "You're finally back. The Li family should pay for the repair of the city wall no matter what," Yi Chao said when he saw Li Zongjio. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle returned to the Li family and recuperated. Gu Xuanwu also came to Li Zhongjio's side. Li Zhongjio didn't look very good. His hair was unkempt and his face was dirty. There were also many wounds on his body. Yi Chao was very curious about the person who could force Li Zhongjio into such a state. Of course, apart from that, the Li family will bear all the losses in this battle. Li Zhongjio said, as a family of the underworld, the Li family must have a good relationship with the mayor's mansion if they wanted to survive. Growth was a win-win situation. Unless one could grow to a certain height and level, they could only cooperate with each other. Becoming an enemy of the mayor's mansion was equivalent to becoming an enemy of the Xingyan dynasty. This was not conducive to the long-term development of the Li family. The potential of the Xingyan dynasty had not been destroyed even after 3,000 years. This showed how firm the Xingyan dynasty was. It had gone through many ups and downs, but the Xingyan dynasty still stood strong. Yi Chao smiled when he heard Li Zhongjio's words. After Li Tianqing entered the city, he quickly went to the city wall. The rest of the guards were also sent to the Li family to investigate the situation. When he saw that Li Zhongjio had arrived before him, Li Tianqing was stunned for a moment, but he still greeted Yi Chao directly. Li Tianqing greets the mayor. No need to be so polite. These people are not only coming for you, but also for me. Yi Chao said slowly. However, there was a trace of worry in his eyes. He looked at the forest in front of him. There is only one person in the northern medicine city who can control so many beasts. This person is very strong and not to be trifled with. It seems that the Northern Medicine Alliance wants to show their power. We haven't escaped from this disaster yet. Yi Chao said. Who is the person who attacked us this time? Li Tianqing asked in a deep voice. The enemy has already come to our home. Why should we be afraid of them? No matter who you are, since you have attacked us, we will wait for the Li family's revenge. Even if there is no one in the Li family who can deal with you, the Li family is rich. If they are rich, they can hire an expert to kill you. The assassin industry has never disappeared in the underground market. If the Northern Medicine Alliance wants to show their power, the Li family is not afraid of you. If I'm not wrong, it should be Su Feng from the Thousand Beasts sect. He has already become an outer deacon. At the same time, he is also the sworn brother of the Northern Medicine Alliance's current leader, Fu Chunlei. Hearing this, Li Tianqing's eyes were filled with shock and he fell into deep thought. If it was an ordinary expert, it would not be a big deal. However, it was someone from the Thousand Beasts sect. No one dared to offend the Thousand Beasts sect. Even the Snow Elixir sect did not dare to provoke the Thousand Beasts sect. Even the fact that Fu Chunlei was able to take over the Northern Medicine Alliance was probably because of the Thousand Beasts sect. Alright, I saw the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle being lured away. Why was it rescued? Yi Chao looked at Li Zhongjio and asked. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was able to intimidate the beasts in the city and deter them from being too arrogant. It was because of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle that the beasts became arrogant. Yes, I rescued it. As for Su Feng, I have already killed him. Li Zhongjio said. At the same time, he took out Su Feng's identity token and handed it to Yi Chao. Yi Chao's eyes widened when he heard this. Is Li Zhongjio joking? That Su Feng was a level 3 beast tamer, and he himself was an origin general. When Yi Chao saw the words, Thousand Beasts Sect, carved on the token, he gasped. It really was Su Feng's token. Li Tianqing, who was standing at the side, could only watch helplessly. Just a moment ago, he was still thinking about how he could get rid of Su Feng. After all, Su Feng was in control of the massive army of beasts and could form an army of his own at any time. It was extremely dangerous. However, in the blink of an eye, Li Zhongjio had already killed Su Feng. What a good son. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.